this for the leveling process. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, there's dungeons. Okay, so I guess I was not muted. So that's good at least. I think I'm gonna be it for today for playing, so did I was not smart enough to put that in. Okay, well let me do that first. So all in all, like I've had a really positive um, experience with Dragonflight. I think some things they could have changed a little more. Like for example, like I said, the flying. Like I think it'd be really cool if they actually had things like just around that would give you more vigor or maybe boost you up, similar to like the racing ones. Um, like I don't know why those aren't just out in the world. Like why is it specifically just in the racing area? I think that's not enough. Just land already. Come on. Where is this? Is there no way to get up? Okay. Gardening? How does that work? Like, there's been interesting mechanics with the professionals. I'm really looking forward to going through them. I think gardening might be a thing, maybe? I think I remember someone talking about that, where you get like rich soil or something like that. So we're gonna mess around with that later. Let me, where am I? I'm trying to just look for the end at this point. Oh, there it is. I don't know. Here it is.
The city's finest wares.
Oh, did not mean to
Find
do
no
that.
better in the city.
There it is. All right. So we're gonna obviously exit out for today, but see if we can react to some videos. One I really been wanting to react to was oh, Asmongold's a new video. I'll probably react to that later. But was the preach one. See if I can bring that up.
Look.
Let's see. Inside Blizzard. Like that one. It's an hour-long video, so this is gonna be a freaking long one. And of course, I got a cat crying in the freaking background. If you can't hear that, I'm sorry. Nothing I can do. His mom is out, and he acts as if like she freaking went out for milk and is never coming back. And yeah, no consoling him either. It's just a big baby. So it's funny. I always start in her like I'm gonna lock him in the bathroom, like, but uh maybe if we had a big bathroom, but because man, he goes on and on. It's really annoying, especially if I'm like working, because I work from home. So I mean that's whatever. All right, let's get this video up. 1 second. Let's see. That should be it, right? Is it showing up now? No? Of course. Let's see. Give me a moment to see if I can figure this out. I have no idea why it's not working. It's really, really pissing me off now. Let me close everything out. There. Let's try that again. The audio's probably coming through just fine. It is, of course it is, but the stupid video.
We are on our way for the first time. We're in the Uber.
I'm gonna skip some of the parts because honestly, I don't really care about his drive. This is real. I'm just gonna delete it, remove, and then re-add it. Yes, I want to remove it because you're not working. All right, let's try that again. Oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, maybe it's not capturing it because of that. Let me try something else. There we go. Why is that not in full mode though? That is so annoying. I've had this stuff set up and then it just resets. Like maybe it's just the OBS I'm using. I'm using like the original creator one. Just because I wanted to support them versus like the people who took their stuff and ran with it. But if they're gonna like do crap like this, I don't know if I'm gonna even bother with them anymore. Okay, it's showing up. Is that showing up? There we go. Okay. I think that's working, is it? Okay, well, I'm just gonna assume it's working now, so. Alright, let's give it a watch.
Right now with all our stuff. By now, you guys have probably seen the tweet that we're going to be filming today. I wrote a couple of days ago and was hoping Ian would be fine with it.
Flight. I mean, Classic seems to have been a runaway success. Like the meme of it being, you know, you think you want it, but you don't.
Yeah.
And now it's like,
Oh, we won.
We thought you didn't, but you did.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, that should have been obvious to anyone. I really don't know how they ever thought it wasn't going to be a good idea. Like, people like nostalgia, like period. Like that's why a lot of remakes are happen, is because people like it. You know, maybe it doesn't live out, you know, to the glory of the original, but let's be fair, it's still going to make money.
You did.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
how was that decision come to at the time? Like, what made the change there? With
That
that?
we actually made Classic?
Yeah, that you were like, okay, they keep asking, we're going to do it.
Honestly, yeah, we didn't think it was going to be financially even necessarily a great decision as much as it was our fans are really asking for this. Some of our most devoted fans are asking for this.
I don't know why they would think it's not financially viable when private servers were so big. Like pretty much all of them have died out, from my understanding. Maybe they're doing a resurgence now because obviously Season of Mastery didn't go over too well. But like, oh, that's a bad picture for her. Pausing there. Change that. Okay, it's a little better. I mean, she looks scared almost. Like, what the heck is happening behind that camera that she's like, oh damn, like, man, she looks terrified there. It's like I'm watching a horror flick. But Yeah, no, I mean, it's always. I really don't understand the idea that it wouldn't be viable. I'm assuming it's because the people who made these kind of decisions probably don't play the game. They're not in the culture. They don't really care about the community as a whole. That's the only reason I can think of on why they would said they didn't think it would be viable.
It really was. When we say it was a love letter, it was a love letter. We're like, we justified it in the, hey, we do this. It's going to make our fans super happy. And, you know, we're going to learn a lot
Yeah.
in the process. But, I mean, come on. How many games have gone back and recreated that? And I did that on God of War, right?
Yep.
God of War 1 and 2 and upraised them. But the game's still live. You know, it's like you can still play those areas in modern. So going
Not really. Like, if they did it like Final Fantasy does it, then yes, I would agree. Like, Final Fantasy has no reason to redo it like private server, like it on own server where it's just the original Final Fantasy, because it's different. You actually do play through those eras similar, very similar to when you first played through it. At least that's been my experience so far. So it's like it makes sense with WoW, or WoW it's like you don't really get that classic experience, like unless you play a classic server. Like there's absolutely no way on retail WoW, and it's been this way since freaking basically Burning Crusade has come out. Maybe Wrath, definitely at Wrath and onward, to get the classic experience anymore. So it's like I don't know. That's a silly thing to say.
back and recreating that original experience, I don't think that's ever been done before.
I mean, RuneScape's tried. Old school RuneScape but they had to accept a lot of changes.
That's why
Yeah.
I'm here with doing our EverQuest Classic servers. This WoW is a whole different
Animal.
yeah.
What challenges did you meet then that you weren't expecting, I guess?
With Classic
Yeah, for sure.
numbers, just vast,
the sheer amount of people
vast
playing it.
numbers. Yeah, and players never do what you expect them to.
Yeah, but let's be fair. Most of the bugs in Classic have already been found. Well, I'm not saying all of them, obviously, but like a lot of them were. And numbers is always going to be an issue with any launch. Doesn't even matter. Like the fact that you guys didn't prepare for the numbers is not surprising. You never do. So retail was or Dragonflight wasn't too bad. First few hours are like unplayable. I think I couldn't even get into the Dragon Isles for 5 hours, something like that. It was crazy.
Like
Thankfully, I had to work, so it was just like sitting in the background. So
ever.
That's like every MMO lesson ever, right? Is like
Yeah.
they just
like if I took the day off for Dragonflight, I'd be freaking disappointed. I don't know why you would think it'd go well either. Like if I was gonna take a day off for it, it would definitely be like the day after or something like that.
all across the planet.
But that's one of the beauties of it is, we're re-exploring and relearning, Classic. Even as much time and effort is spent in the archaeology of, does it match what the original game was like? But when players interact with it now, the skill that they have, the knowledge, that some
But you guys didn't change anything, so why is that a hurdle? Like, what are you talking about? Like all of that is basically the same in the Classic servers.
of them have done it before.
Mm-hmm.
All these like really interesting little edge cases and stuff that they find, and it's a day-to-day, wow, look what they figured out.
Yeah.
It was based
Did you
on
expect it to just be like everyone's going to play it for like a month?
Yeah.
Was that your expectation?
Kind of. I mean, I remember our original estimates, and it was kind of funny because we totally underestimated the number of realms we were going to have, and I can remember like arguing with one of our regions, it was like very conservative and like we're only going to need this, and we'd flown out there and we're like, no, we think based on our estimates in North America, you're probably going to want to have more than that. Within, and God bless the Classic team, but like literally within weeks they had to spin up 10 times our estimate
Yeah. Almost like the original WoW.
to handle it.
It's
Yeah.
almost like
Yeah.
it recreated that back-end experience.
Except we
as
had
well.
the technology this time. It was like
Strapping
the hardware. What do we do? I don't know. Go up to fries.
literally belt strapping things together.
That's funny. Definitely. Yeah, because if something like that happened back when Classic WoW was a thing, like that server or the downtime used to be way longer before when like stuff like that happened.
Look at it, go. But
Yeah.
it's been. I'm curious what you guys have learned from that. from what the players are doing in Classic that's now coming into the retail game. Like you were like, yeah, we should bring that into the retail.
You're seeing it, yeah. I mean, that's the exciting thing is
I don't play Alliance. What is this?
Classic brought back these conversations about
Is this for like a reverse
talent
spawn or
trees,
something?
like revamping talents.
Quest
How much
spawn?
do you love spending your points and experimenting with
The talent tree from Dragonflight is such a big win. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I've had so much fun with that. It's not complex, overly complex, but it's also not super simple, like brain dead simple. Like, I think they hit a really good medium with it. I don't know if every class is like gonna be obviously that case. But so far had a ton of fun just messing with that on each character I've played so far.
your class, or if that was what your memory is. That's my memory of Classic or of Vanilla. And so the team recognized that. They're always taking the pulse too. It's like players really love that. And professions. I think the teams really wanted for a long time to be able to focus on
Talked about professions already. They really did a lot of good things there. Just the work order system sucks.
professions as well.
Mm-hmm.
But even how we are looking at content, right? So more, in vanilla or classic, there's the exploration factor. It felt less guided, and the team's taken that to heart too. And you'll see elements of that in Dragonflight as well. It's a really wonderful exploration about
Yeah, definitely. Like sometimes with Dragonflight, I literally flew around and I just found a new questing area. And I'm like, oh, cool, let's just quest here.
where are we now and where are we going to go in the future, and kind of taking stock and listening to the community, and it's pretty incredible to see it coming through in Dragonflight.
Yeah, I think there's social interaction,
I
in
miss that so
Classic,
much.
you had to,
Mhm.
just to get through stuff, you had to make friends, and we were all in this together. I played in the beta, and I played, WoW. I played for 18 years.
What's the biggest change you've seen in players? Because I talk about like what idyllic MMOs. What would if I was creating an MMO? What would it look like?
From my perspective, I would say the biggest change is how mainstream games have gotten. So you have a lot of basically way more players than you used to, and I think that's gonna just keep increasing. Um, you know, it's no longer a case where it's just like one really big MMO. Like Warcraft was the MMO. Obviously, there was other ones, but like none of them could really compete with it. But that's not the case anymore. Um, but because of that, because it's so mainstream. Like guides and builds and stuff like that is just way more common. Like before, I remember playing like, and you'd see people with like really, really garbage loot and stuff like that, or like gear, not loot, or builds. Like, what the heck? And I still find that when I played Classic for a bit, like people were just awful. You know what's funny is my dad, because my family plays Warcraft also, but my dad like went over to visit him, just hanging out, and he, logs into Warcraft. He's like, "Hey, can you take a look at my talents for his classic WoW character?" And no lie, I'm just like, "Dad, you can read, right?" Like that's how bad his talents were. I'm just like, you couldn't have done this while reading what the stuff does. Like, it's impossible. I mean, I didn't say it out loud, but I'm just like, what the? But yeah, no, that's the old school MMO player. But like, I even told him, I was like, well, I'll send you the site. And he's like, yeah, I don't really want to look on those sites. I'm just like, dude, what the heck do you want? Like, because he got mad that he wasn't doing well in tanking. Like he kept dying. So his spec was really, really bad, guys. Like if you could choose the wrong one, he chose the wrong one. So
And I focus so much on the people because I can't think of
Yeah.
an MMO being anywhere what I would consider great without the people you play it with. I think about my guild more than what's this feature, what's this content.
I don't know. Like maybe I'm the outlier. I don't really play with a lot of people like guilds and stuff. Like I'll join a guild maybe if there's incentive for it, but it's usually like only because it's needed. It's not because I want to exactly. And even then, I usually don't even join guilds. I may do it with Dragonfly because I'm really liking it so far. Yeah, I play most games solo, including MMOs, like Final Fantasy and stuff. Like Final Fantasy, I didn't even join a guild. I just did pugs. Still was able to raid a lot of those raids. Maybe not the newer ones, but I raided a lot of the almost all of the older ones. It's pretty fun.
Um, but we're growing loud voice that I've seen across many MMOs now. We're talking to so many MMO companies. A lot of players who just want the solo experience.
Oh, so okay, so they're talking about me. I guess. You know what? Oh, man, I think we know what Dragonflight's missing. It needs a Torghast. And I know I'm gonna get crucified for saying that, but it's like, but a fun Torghast. It's not needed. Maybe it's a freaking weekly or something like that, where you get some gold out of it or something like that, or similar to how you get the little boxes for reputation grinds. Like have it the same, where you can get reputation in like a Torghasty kind of thing. Like obviously you don't want 1-to-1 to Torghast, but that kind of similar vein where it's like a rogue like in a way. Like make it fun, make it where you can choose a reputation, like have it where you can sell tabards, where reputation earned in Torghast goes to this, faction, and you just run that all day. Just get your reputation up. Maybe not make it the most ideal thing, but don't make it like really really bad either. Um, I think that'd be really cool because reputation is actually pretty important in Dragonflight. I think it's like the renown back in Shadowlands. I could be wrong, but that's what it's feeling like right now. Like I haven't really worked on it too much, I'll be honest, because I've been mainly focused on crafting, like learning about it, do it like farming it. So
And their biggest fear is actually other people, which blows my
what?
mind because I was like,
Fear of other people. I think he's got that wrong. I don't think it's fear of other people. I think it's the anxiety, the unknown of the unknown. Like you don't know if this person's going to be cool, going to be annoying. Like your experience is going to be based on your interaction with them, versus your solo experience is pretty much based on you. Obviously, the content a bit. Um, yeah, I don't know fear. Like that's a weird word for that. So I don't think a lot of people fear it, because if they feared it, they wouldn't be playing an MMO.
I love the people so much, even the bad ones, because that's a moment. I think about those moments with the bad people.
You're also a content creator, man. So, I mean, for you it makes more sense, but for people, say they only have like a few hours a week. Maybe they only play WoW on the weekends. Maybe like 3-4 hours, and then they have a bad hour because of someone. Like, boom, that's a good chunk of their game time. That's kind of has a stain on it. So I don't know. Like, you can play games. You play games all day. You're due for content. So it's like your mindset is going to be completely different than a normal person, I would assume.
And what's the biggest change you've seen in gamers in general?
I think you've actually identified one of the challenges that we face with World of Warcraft is we know that a lot of players just want to come in, have some fun, know that, there's things for them to do, and not have the pressure of having to interact with other people.
Mm-hmm.
But then they want to, and then when they have that chance encounter,
Well, you just nailed it on the head. Is they shouldn't be forced to do it, but if they want to do it, there should be things in the game that allow it, and it should be the optimal routes. Like for example, getting gear. Like everyone knows, running dungeons, at least early on, is going to be how you get the gear the quickest. Maybe this crafting system makes it a little bit different, but in general, that's been the case, always the case, and most people are okay with that. However, you still get gear with quests, like maybe a quest chain will give you like a blue at the end. So like that is pretty much how you do it. Is have like the best stuff, maybe a group play, and then you can kind of get there solo, but it takes longer basically. Like that's really it. Like like reputation grinds. That's a perfect way to do it. Just slowly building up the reputation by doing maybe dailies, questing there, whatever builds up reputation. Haven't really worked on it, I'll be honest. But just by doing, if you guys hear me breathe, I had COVID, really messed with my lungs, so unfortunately I run out of breath more than I used to. It really sucks, but But yeah, um, just have things people can jump on and do by themselves that works towards that end goal kind of thing. And that's really it. Like the more things you put in there too, the better.
where someone
So it doesn't get stale.
happens to be farming the same thing and you just got killed 3 times and okay, let's join in a group together. We did it, we killed it together, awesome, that's cool. Or meeting that set of friends that you start running dungeons with, or you start doing a raid with, and enjoying some of that group content that we've created. Those are some of the best moments in the game.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
I remember it was Christmas a few years back when we had the hive mind, mount. That was it was this crazy set of things that you had to do to unlock it. And I did this with a completely random set of people. 4 people I didn't even know. We went through all of it. I had all the monocles. We got this thing, and we were all like high-fiving each other. And I got to put them on my friends list. And I actually kept in contact with the one for a couple months.
That's pretty rare, adding people to friends lists. I can't even remember the last time I added like a non-family member. I really do like their new system, finding groups for quests and stuff. Like that's actually pretty impressive, and it's gotten so much better with cross faction. Like it's cute. Like getting groups for stuff in retail WoW is just so much better than what it used to be. I'm really impressed with it. I barely use it still. Like that's unfortunately just the sad truth of it is it's really convenient, really easy to use. I still barely use it. I don't really want to use it. But I'm glad it's there. So please don't remove it. But yeah, no, that's I don't even know what he's talking about. I never did this. This looks cool though. That's probably an expansion I didn't really play too much.
Months after that.
Yeah.
But those moments are so cool. And I think, we try to have.
What's funny is that's how I got a lot of friends with Destiny. When I was playing that, it was just pugs. Forget what. Like I made a really good friend in Destiny. He's doing his own thing now, but yeah, that's pickup groups, and then you make friends from those pickup groups is always cool. Cool feeling.
Experiences like that, where you no pressure, you can play by yourself if you want to.
I actually got to change the name of this stream because I'm not streaming Dragonflight right now. How do I do that? I don't even know. I'm gonna be straight up honest with you. Gonna have to minimize this. Yeah, sorry. See if I can get a new window here. How do I do this? Oh, let me just change it on the fly like that? I have no idea. Let me see. Oh, yeah, I can. Okay. Give me a moment. Reacting. I think I spelled that right. What's the video called? A New Era? I sincerely hope so. I really don't want it to ever go back to Shadowlands. Because I was ready to quit WoW, like, basically forever. If this came out and it was like Shadowlands, so... Okay, that works, I guess. Just
Um,
that some of them have done it before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All these like really interesting little edge cases and stuff
Okay.
that they find, and it's a
To switch it up to Asmin reacting to that same video, just because it might as well. Like it's more interesting, at least to me.
day to day. Wow, look what they figured out.
Yeah.
It was based
Did you
on.
expect it to just be like everyone's going to play it for like a month?
Yeah.
Was that your expectation?
Kind of. I mean, I remember our original estimates, and it was kind of funny because we totally
I wonder if
underestimated.
they're gonna give any numbers. I really want. I want to know numbers, John. Wait, let's hear some fucking numbers. Even if they're proportional percentage numbers.
I might have been too loud.
that
Sorry
don't
about
actually
that.
reveal anything. I want numbers.
The number of realms.
I don't
we're
think
gonna
they'll
have
ever
to
give
have.
numbers. It
And,
doesn't really
I can remember,
benefit
you know,
them
like
in most
arguing
cases.
with one of our regions, it was like very conservative.
Just 'cause they'll
you know,
compare it to
we're only
other
gonna need
things.
this.
On
And
whether,
we'd
like, if
flown
it's
out
not
and we're like,
higher,
"No,
then
we
there's
think
no point
based
in
on our
releasing it.
estimates in North America, you're probably going to want to have more than that within, and God bless the classic team, but like literally within weeks, they had to spin up 10 times our estimate
Yeah.
Almost like the original WoW.
to handle it.
It's
Yeah.
almost like a
Well,
recreate.
it's because classic
Yeah.
WoW, it was so big that it became bigger than WoW. It's like everybody in the gaming space knew about classic WoW. It wasn't like a new WoW expansion or like a new game coming out. It was like a massive fucking thing.
It was like a WoW expansion though for a lot of people. And they treated it like an expansion. At least that's was my experience with it myself. Maybe other people just saw it as like a different game. That'd be weird. But definitely saw it as like an expansion to retail WoW if you didn't play retail WoW. I played it and I still kind of treated it that way because obviously I forgot most of that time. So
That back-end experience.
Except we had the technology this time. We're like, we don't have the hardware. What do we do? I don't know. Go up to fries.
Literally felt scrapping things together.
Yeah.
Plug it in. Go, go, go. But
Yeah.
it's been. I'm curious what you guys have learned from that, from what the players are doing
I mean,
classic,
Crip, I
and
can
now
join
coming
this
into
guy.
the retail game. Like you were like, yeah, we should bring that.
This is a great
You're
question.
seeing it, yeah. I mean, that's
Talent
the
trees?
exciting thing is Classic brought back these conversations about talent trees, like revamping talents. How much do you love spending your points and
Isn't
experimenting
it
with
crazy how like they finally, Classic WoW came out and it's like the talent trees came out, and I feel like the talent trees in Dragonflight are majority positive. Most people have been like, they're pretty good.
yeah,
Like, I'm happy with my talent tree. I'm excited. So it's like, yeah,
your class? Or
fuck yeah.
I talked about it already. And in fact, I'm really tempted to just skip to the point because it's like he's talking about things I've already talked about. So I don't know. We'll
was
just watch
what
it.
your
Don't
memory
really
is.
have much
That's
more to
my
add to that
memory of Classic.
than
or
what he's
MMO.
already said. So
And so the team recognized that. They're always taking the pulse too. It's like players really love that, and professions. I think the teams really wanted for a long time.
they take the
to be
pulse a
able
lot
to
of times, but
focus
they don't
on
really do
professions
anything
as
with it.
well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really curious to see what professions are going to look like in Dragonflight.
Oh, he must have reacted to this before Dragonflight. Okay. Well, they're really good, or at least much better than they've ever been.
I'll be honest, I am not convinced that they will be as good as Blizzard thinks they will. I think that this will.
They're definitely not as good as I think people made it out to be on those videos for like from the beta. But it's still like way better than what it was, which to me is what counts.
This will be turned into a formulaic algorithm that players use in order to, make these decisions on who's going to make what, who's going to get what, how professions are going to be farmed, etc. I don't think it's going to be that great, but we'll see what happens.
Even how we are looking at
I think he's talking in it from maybe a guildmaster's perspective, maybe, or someone who's just all about just getting that gear. From that point of view, I would agree with him. It's not much of a difference than what it was. I think it's better because obviously you can make at least decent gear faster than what professions used to do. I forget which expansion it was. One of them was very similar. I think Burning Crusade. I could be wrong on that. But But doing the crafting itself, like farming the nodes, basically kind of feels the same. Not gonna lie, it's a little variety here and there because you get like the special nodes that you can do things with. But I mean, it's not much you could do with them, I would assume. Like archaeology, I really wish. I don't know if it's still a thing. I really wish that's. If it is, I'm gonna have to look into that. But yeah, I mean it's better. It's a little different. So, I mean it's to me it's a good starting place. Like obviously it's very good building foundation for it. So
Content, right? So more, in vanilla or classic, there's the exploration factor. It felt less guided, and the team's taken that to heart too. And you'll see elements of that in Dragonflight as
Dragonflight's not anywhere near what vanilla was though in terms of not being guided.
well. It's a really wonderful exploration.
It's definitely
about,
less guided
where
than
are
like
we now,
Shadowlands
and
was.
where are we going to go in the future, and kind of taking stock and listening to the community, and it's pretty incredible to see it coming through in Dragonflight.
Yeah, I think the social interaction, you know,
I
in
miss that so
classic,
much.
you know, you had to, you know, just to get through stuff, you had to make friends, and we were all in this together. You know, I played in the beta, and I played, WoW. I played for 18 years.
What's the biggest change you've seen in players? Because I talk about like what idyllic MMOs, what would if
More
I was creating an
warriors.
MMO, what it would look like, and I focus so much on the people because I can't think of an MMO being anywhere what I would consider great without the people you play with. I think about my guild more than what's this feature, what's this content. But we're growing loud voice that I've seen across many MMOs now. We're talking to so many
Yeah.
MMO companies. A lot of players who just want the solo experience,
Hmm.
and the
Yep.
biggest fear is actually other people, which blows my mind because I was like,
I already said it.
people
I don't
so
think it's
As I
fair.
said, I think that WoW was like a stand apart game in 2004 because it provided a solo experience. WoW was a great solo experience.
Compared to the MMOs out at that time, yeah, WoW was like the only one that really had any solo like content that I can remember.
Like my mom played WoW solo 95% of the time. I play WoW solo a lot. So yeah, I think that they already have that.
even the bad ones, because that's a moment. I think about those moments with the bad people, and what's the biggest change you've seen in gamers in general?
I think you've actually identified one of the challenges that we face with World of Warcraft is we know that a lot of players just want to come in, have some fun, know that, there's things for them to do, and not have the pressure of having to interact with other people.
Mm-hmm.
But then they want to, and then when
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Interaction should not be mandatory. Like making people interact with each other through like weird systems that you kind of force into the game that players have to interface with. This sucks. Yeah, interaction should be optional and should be taken enthusiastically.
they have that chance encounter, where someone happens to be farming the same thing and you just got killed 3 times and, okay, let's join in a group together. We did it. We killed it together. Awesome. That's cool. Or meeting, that set of friends that you start running dungeons with, or you start doing a raid with.
I mean, it's
and
cool, but it's
enjoying
also
some of
pretty
the
rare.
content
So
that we've created.
I don't know.
Those are some of the
Basing everything
the
on
best
it
moments in the
is
game.
the good idea. But
I remember it was Christmas a few years back when we had the hive mind, mount. It was this crazy set of things that you had to do.
Oh my god! I remember we did this on stream. This shit was fun. I think it was like me, McConnell,
man.
and like 3 other dudes.
guess I met
It was a good time.
Unlock it.
Halls
And
of
I did this with
Origination.
a completely random set
Is
of
this a
people.
dungeon?
Like
On top
4
of this?
people I
I
didn't
don't
even know. We went through all of it. I had all the monocles. We got this thing, and
I thought it was like a world
high-fiving
quest.
Each other, and I I gotta.
Not
put
world
my
quest,
friends
like a
list,
quest
and
out in the
actually
world
kept in
that you can
contact
just
with
do.
one for a couple months after that.
Yeah.
Like those I
Those
find pretty fun,
moments are
where you
so
need a
cool,
group
and
to
I
do
think
stuff like that.
We try to have experiences like that. Where you
Classic WoW
no
has more of
pressure,
those.
You can go by yourself if you want to. And I think there's something actually kind of comforting knowing that while I'm wandering around doing my solo thing, working on one of my alts or whatever,
You're surrounded by other
that
people.
there's thousands of other people around there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think people like the idea of a shared space, but not necessarily a mandatory sharing of that space.
Can see them doing their thing.
Or activity.
And I think that's,
Yeah,
that's a
I
really
see what he
fun
means.
part of the game. It reminds me that I'm not just doing this all by myself.
Like I said before, what does it mean for Azeroth to feel alive, day to day, week to week, and ongoing? And how do we evolve that? And to me, I geek out. We all geek out about all this stuff about how do we evolve? We are committed to WoW evolving and delivering more for players and being mindful of the community. So when you're talking about how gamers,
I think that's probably one of the biggest weaknesses that WoW's had in the past, like ever since Legion, I would say, is that I don't think WoW has really evolved since Legion at all.
It regressed.
change, we have people like you, people that we are a living, breathing community, not just in Azeroth, but outside.
I mean, how do you top
Well,
freaking
really,
artifacts? Like the artifacts they gave
advancing
you
our
as
thinking
weapons?
about
Those were
what does
so
it
cool.
mean for all of us as a community around World of Warcraft. So we're thinking really big, and then also, what's going to bring players along, week to week, month to month, and make sure that, we're serving our community who want to live there.
This is why this trip is so important. Sitting down with these guys, finding out how Classic came about and how it's going to influence Dragonflight, so amazing. But one of the things I'm worried about with coming here is I actually don't know how everybody plays World of Warcraft. I think back to my day to say, from vanilla all the way up until the end, and the sheer amount of mandatory content that has been added to the game over the years has just grown exponentially, including several systems which are just infinite in
cool
time.
background.
Now, of course, mandatory is a subjective thing.
Bruh.
If you break it down, everything is optional. But if you wanted to
Yo, we're about to get to Legion. You're about to get to Legion.
Shoot.
Get ready for it.
character wearing the
Here we
current
go.
gear, the latest legendaries, whatever it might be, your commitment to the game has massively increased.
Legion
Even
only
doing
has
content
BFA is
that
even
perhaps
worse.
you don't like simply
Oh, damn.
because you have to. Torghast
some
would
of
be
those
a
looked
great example
interesting.
of that.
Like
Your
see if I can go
commitment to
back.
the game has massively increased. Even doing content
BFA is
that
even
perhaps
worse.
you don't
Like I didn't really play BFA like at all. I heard Azerite Power was garbage, but I thought Warfronts was interesting. I didn't unfortunately get to experience too much of it, but I've been told like they could have really made something cool out of that. Horrific visions and corruption are actually two things I really, really, really wish I had played BFA for, just to kind of experience it. I don't know if you can still do that. I'm going to try. I doubt it. But yeah, those two especially. And the Warfronts. I don't know what this is. Benthic Pearls. No idea what that is.
like simply because you have to.
Yeah.
Torghast would be a great
Torghast, really wish they did more with that, man. I loved like Torghast when I first did it. It just got boring pretty quickly. And then I was told like it became Chorgas, which I'm like, they should have done. Dominate, I didn't really get, like, I'll be honest with Shadowlands, I got up to, I think like the first raid, and immediately I was like, yeah, this is not for me. I just left.
example of that. But the thing is, I actually don't know whether people like doing that.
Nothing.
Nobody does except them. So let's
People like doing things that they don't have to do a lot more than they like doing things that they do have to do.
I think that's true in a general sense, but I think it's more of a case people like doing things that can help their character, versus people don't like doing things that must be done on that character. I think that's the difference. It's not like you still want to do those things for gear, gold, whatever it may be. Like it can help your character, but it's not the only available means to help your character. When it's only one option, that's when it becomes a problem.
I think that Torghast would have been looked at much more positively if people didn't have to do it.
sit down with
It's not
Ian
that
and
complicated.
try and find out how people spend their time in Azeroth. But I know how you guys spend your time, and that's by picking up a display. Display
Ad.
is proudly sponsoring this video so we could take all our equipment.
I'm not gonna
pack
skip
up
the
our stuff,
ads.
and fly across the
If
world
I'm gonna watch someone's
to speak to
video,
Blizzard on
I
your
don't.
behalf.
I think
If you
Asmon
like
does the
this,
same
and
thing.
you wanna
It's
see
like there's
more
no
of this,
reason to skip
especially
their
check
ads.
out part 2 of this video where we're going to be looking at how World of Warcraft is made.
By the way, if you guys get one of these, actually follow the directions. Yeah, like actually follow the directions to stick it to the wall. And don't just think, you just throw it up there and it should be fine. It won't be fine. Yeah,
I'm
it'll be fine.
guessing
Yeah,
he's
follow the
speaking from
directions,
experience.
And why not consider picking up a display? And using our link down below, you can get up to a massive 44% off your display order. And we have these
Been
amazing
thinking about getting one of
official
those.
World of Warcraft displays that you can pick up in time for Dragonflight as well. So if you're looking for some cool art that's very, very easy to put up, you can swap them around, you can have multiple of them. Why not consider display and help us out? And maybe we can go and visit some other people you'd like us to talk to as well. Now let's talk to Ian.
Yeah,
Was that
those-
Final
the
Fantasy
displays
display?
are good.
I was wondering what
I've
this
learned
was
the
up here.
displays are
I think it's
very
Final
nice.
Fantasy.
Asfand actually
I
got
just don't
pictures,
recognize it.
Of me and him
I only know it
done,
'cause of the
it's like
cactuar.
classic WoW one,
Or
and
think
I
it
told
is
him
'cause
that,
of the
like, my
cactuar.
dad liked the picture and he remembered it. And my dad had an extra display made. Sorry, Asfand had an extra display made, and I gave it to my dad, and he still has it up in his living room.
That's cool.
I mean, you serve so many different player types, right? I mean, I don't
This
know how
is
you're
the part of the thing I really, really wanted to watch was his interview with Ian.
metrics
McConnell.
work. But one of the questions, because I think it's really tough when you're out there and you're not just a content creator, but you're anybody. The vast majority is a horrible, horrific term that gets thrown around all the time in reference to World of Warcraft. This is what the vast majority likes. What do people actually do in the game? Because you know, we don't know.
I think everything. Honestly, I mean, I think that's one of the quirks of WoW. It's part of the magic of WoW. It's part of what makes designing for WoW really challenging at times. I think you could take a dozen people, all of whom would say WoW is their primary game. It's one of their favorite games, the game they play a ton. You could sit them around a table and have them talk about what they do in the game and why they like it.
Mm-hmm.
And it could sound like they're describing 12 different games or experiences that would be far into the others. It really
I seriously doubt that. Only because of the people I've run into, and not, I mean in real life, who play the game, and they do basically the same things. 12, it's more like 3. You're a raider, you're an RPer, which is like super rare in WoW, much more common in Final Fantasy, or you're into making as much gold as possible. It's usually like one of the 3. Like that's, at least so far, what I've run into. And then, of course, you have the casual, which I kind of... Casual or RP are kind of the same thing, I guess, maybe. I don't know. I haven't even met anyone who does RP in real life in WoW. Or at least they don't admit to it, so... Yeah, I think it's... I would say 4, maybe, then? You got the casual ones who just jump in, do their dailies. That's it. You have the raiders. Obviously, they do their raids and get out. And then you have the people who try to work the auction house or, farm materials they think is going to sell well. That's about it. I don't know about 12. Are there people who do other stuff? Like, I have no idea.
is everything
Probably true.
from the, completionist solo collector to the casual PvPer who just queues battle.
The solo collector. I think that's not as common. I could be wrong, though. Collecting some things that look really cool, like that, yes. But like someone who's like trying to 100% the game, I doubt there's many of them.
Battlegrounds all weekend. The hardcore
Yep.
PvPer who wants to push high rating to the mythic.
Oh,
quest raider,
PvP, I
to
forgot
the
about that.
casual raider, to the
So,
hardcore
like
raider,
5.
to everything in between.
Watching
And
says
I
a few
think one of
things more and it
WoW's
adds
biggest
more and more.
strengths, and it always has been, is that they allow you to play the game in so many different ways. So, like,
100%.
if you
Yep.
want to play a video game, you can log into WoW and decide what video game you want to play. That's, I think, one of the biggest positives with the game, and I think that MMOs that don't have that, and I think that really 2 MMOs that don't have that is number 1, Lost Ark doesn't have that very much, and neither does New World. There's like kind of
Yeah.
one way of gaming, and that's about it, and maybe 2 ways with like gathering, you could say. But overall, it's a one-size-fits-all situation. I think that WoW and Final Fantasy, especially WoW, I think does a great job at catering to so many different types of playstyles.
Final Fantasy's craftings was better than WoW's, and it wasn't even really close. Now, though, I think I prefer WoW's crafting a little bit more. I think Final Fantasy can learn a bit from that, but at the same time, it's not like Final Fantasy has been having like gear sets for crafting and stuff like that, and actually being pretty involved with their crafting system. So, I mean, I think the only big not gonna lie, I think Asmon played too little Final Fantasy to comment on it too much there. Just because it's like, other than the PvP scene, like what you can do with WoW, you can do in Final Fantasy. And even then, Final Fantasy has like a decent PvP scene. Like if you really want to PvP in Final Fantasy, there is like multiple Discord like groups out there to join. I mean, joining solo queue though, that's I think the problem in Final Fantasy. Solo queue isn't as good or as popular. Um, that could be different because I know they released the new mode, the Crystal, whatever. It's not really new, but uh, in terms of like overall like thing, like it's a new mode. I played it for quite a while. It's just it got boring because it's like the same thing over and over. But like it was fun for a while, and I had fun in a PvP and MMO game for a while. So like WoW, I don't ever really PvP in WoW anymore. I should try that in Dragonflight. I didn't even think about that because I used to really enjoy it.
And all the different Venn diagram overlaps, and all of those people are World of Warcraft players.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you get burnt out with doing one type of WoW content, and then like
Yep.
you go and do another content. Like for example of this is like I never played ESO, so I can't make an example on that. I played it like 2 days, so I never really played it.
He also had
It's
pretty
like,
good
you know,
PvP.
earlier today, like I was doing.
I think it's one of the
Plus,
more
we didn't clear
funner
the
PvP
key.
games I played.
I was burned out. I was like, "Fuck, this sucks. I don't want to play this anymore." I didn't quit playing WoW. I just went and I did something different in WoW.
Yep.
And that's, I think, what makes an MMO successful.
That's why leveling ults is so important. Or not leveling ults, making it what's the word I'm looking for? That's why making it ult friendly is super important. Is because if you're getting burnt out on your main character, whatever you're doing on that main character, just go level one of your ults. You know? So it makes it as if you're playing a whole new game, depending like if you're going from a caster to a melee kind of thing, or healer to like DPS or vice versa. And I think that's what WoW has been really messing up on. Dragonflight's much easier to level your ults.
Is that you can go and you can do one thing and then do something else.
And it's and I think and the world is, again, as I said earlier, richer because it has all of them in it. But a challenge is, yeah, there is no majority, so to speak. It's a collection of many minorities, each of whom have different and sometimes competing interests.
Yeah.
And
There's
that's, I think,
definitely
that's part of the
majorities,
challenge
let's
when
be
it comes
fair.
to listening, addressing feedback. I think
Another thing, I just thought it up when he brought this up, is the crafting system. Like, this looks pretty similar to what's available now, but a bit different. But I really don't like how there's no way to respec, or if there is, I have not been able to figure it out. No video talks on it. Sounds like the only option is to completely unlearn your spec and then relearn it, which is garbage. Like, if you're going to have talents, give us a way to reset those talents. Now, professional talents should not be like your class talents. It shouldn't just be free and you do whatever you want. Professional talents definitely should have some kind of barrier. Like maybe you can do it once a week, or like make it like a pretty large amount of gold. I think a weekly thing makes more sense. That way you're not just like, what's the flavor of the month for selling stuff? I'm just going to put all my points into that. Oh, wait, I messed up. It's like, make it a week. That way it's like, for those of us who kind of went in there and just had fun with it, it wasn't really, I'll be honest, I didn't really go through it really that much. I was just putting points into what looked interesting. But now I'm just like, oh man, I really messed up on like the first two people I leveled up their professions. Like, long term, it's probably not going to be ideal. Yeah, that's why I'm like, man, like I don't want to redo it all because it's going to cost me like at least 30,000 gold to kind of redo what I did. So and that's just on the material cost to level it up, redo the things. Yeah, it sucks. It's just a waste of time.
Often the two are a little bit conflated, where hearing feedback should mean, in the eyes of players, and understandably so, well, do what I say. I told you I don't like this. We told you we don't like this, and you didn't change it. Therefore, you're clearly not listening.
Especially if that person believes they're a reasonable person.
The problem with that though is when everyone's saying the same thing, when there are literally no one saying the other way around. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying, oh, the loudest voices. What I mean is like, maybe the loudest voices. I'm trying to think here, but it's like when it's universally agreed something's bad, how is it that you think it's irrational for them to assume that you are not listening? The covenants, changing covenants. Great example. No one other than like hardcore RPers, which let's be fair are like super minorities of minorities, thought that was a good idea. So I don't know. I think that's kind of bullshit. I think it's a cop out answer. He just doesn't want to say that we think you players are stupid and we're right. I think he's just trying to avoid that answer.
I'm a reasonable person, and I think you're incorrect. So,
and they are, and they are a reasonable person, and I think it's totally reasonable to want to advocate for the game that you want to play and the play style that you.
I think that makes sense. I think the frustration that players have with WoW is whenever things that were advocated for in alpha actually do happen, but it takes an hour, or sorry, not an hour, an entire
If
year
only.
for them to happen.
An hour,
It takes
if
like
only.
2 major content patches for covenants to be changed. It takes 1 major content patch or 3 major content patches for legendaries to be changed.
Yep.
So I do think that like you're definitely right. Like Ian's definitely right about saying like just because we hear feedback doesn't mean we agree with it. Just because we agree with the feedback doesn't mean that we need to solve it in the same way that you think that we should solve it. And I think that's a good point. Like he brings up a very, very good point here.
It's valid, but I don't know about good. It's definitely valid though.
Is that it's like this is a Jeff Kaplan quote where it's like you can't rely on players to tell you what the solution is, but you can sure as hell rely on them to tell you if there's a problem.
Okay. I mean, that's true for complex things. Let's be fair. That is true for complex things, but for things like covenants, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because it's like, okay, why do people hate it? Because it sucks they can't change covenants when they want to. Okay. So, what should we do? Okay, well, the players think they should just have it where you can switch. Yeah, but you can't really rely on the players. Yeah, but it's like the only damn option you have. Like, what else are you gonna do? Like, you can have different flavors of that, I guess, but it's still the same thing. So that's still like a cop-out answer. It's like, I don't know. Like, I feel like he's giving them like a little too much slack for something that's not really a good excuse. It's a valid one. Like it makes sense to a degree, but let's be fair. Like if you've ever dealt with a service that wasn't ideal, like that doesn't really matter. Like for example, say with your bank or whatever, like they have policies that just make your experience suck. And maybe those policies do make sense to a different setting. But it's like, that's no reason to think like it's a good policy. It's not. It's a valid policy. But maybe they should look into, okay, well, why does it suck? And why was it here in the first place? And try to work as a compromise in between that. But WoW never really did that, which is the problem. Or if they did it like a year later.
And I think this is an example of that.
Favor. And it's our job to take everybody's concerns into account.
But he doesn't. Maybe they're going to touch upon it, but why does it take so long?
It's not a player's concern to take other people's happiness into their account when playing a game. They just want what's going to make it the most fun for them.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, yes and no. Because your game's going to die if no one's having fun. If you're the only one having fun, there are going to be obviously people who's like, that's all they care about. But let's be fair. If you're having fun, more than likely other players are also going to be having fun. Like, why? That's like a weird mindset. Like, you're thinking in the PvP sense where one person's fun is going to take away from another person's fun, which usually isn't the case. That's usually the case for, like, difficulty, maybe. Something's too hard or too easy. But the Covenant system, that no one found that fun. And even our peers, like, let's be fair, they could just not change their Covenant. Like, the option being there doesn't make them force them to change their Covenant. So,
and so, I think the challenge comes where sometimes those desires are directly conflicting. Where
very rarely.
A good example.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Thank God. You're asking for an example because I think that for a lot of these examples, there are not that many of these. Like there are maybe some examples, but
Yep.
in general, I think that one of the main frustrating things is that whenever Blizzard does not make a change or doesn't fix something until way later.
Rewards are a clear case.
Oh, I'd love to get into this with you. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's basically the people who want to do a thing and don't see any value in it and want it to be more rewarding, versus the people who don't.
That is, I don't know. I feel like he's deflecting with that response because he just said the changes that players would want directly conflict with something else another player may want. What player has it where they like something and does not want to be rewarded? You know what I'm saying? Like, the conflict here would only be that I can think of is that you made it where that reward is mandatory and that is the only way to get that reward, which is a completely different conversation. That shouldn't be the case at all. Like in anything, like it doesn't matter what you're doing it for, whether people want it or not. Like you shouldn't have just that one avenue for that mandatory, whatever it is.
Want to be forced to do the thing and want it to stay not rewarding at all.
He's talking about Torghast. Yeah, exactly what I thought. Like he's just deflecting with the covenant. Like he couldn't come up with a reason why the covenant thing wasn't changed, so he just went to Torghast and like, oh yeah, like everyone hated that it was a Torghast, and it's like that's not like. No one asked you to make Torghast like absolutely necessary to progress.
Or should PvE gear have any place in PvP, or vice?
So for that one, I think the only advocates for that are what I was kind of what they've. I forget who. I think Josh Striface spoke about it. Was that if you make it OP for one character, it's going to ruin the experience for others. Or maybe it was Asmongold who brought it up. But either way, that is why the whole conversation between should PvE gear affect PvP is because you, through other means than PvP, now have better gear than someone who just does PvP. Why? That'd be like if they made PvP gear at the same level as raiding gear. So you doing PvP are now at the apex of PvE as well, even though you don't touch PvE. Like that's what I think a lot of people have like an issue with. Honestly, it should just be. I don't know. I've always been like Final Fantasy does it really, really well with their PvP, and I think ESO as well does it similar. Well, your gear doesn't really make almost any difference in PvP. I could be wrong. I think with ESO, it's more the set and how it synergizes with your skill. But it's been a while since I played it, so I could be wrong. But I don't think there should be item levels in PvP. I think there should be a set item level across the board, and that the abilities are also set across the board in PvP. So whether you're level 1 queuing up versus the max level queuing up, I think you should get access to the same things. I think it should just be your spec that changes how you play in PvP, and obviously cosmetics should be allowed. Like you should be able to transmog, but I think that PvE transmog allowed in PvP character should be allowed. But there should be. I think they already do it. There's unique transmogs in PvP, and that's what it should be focused on. Like the doing it and then getting transmogs from it. I think it should give you general dungeon gear ready gear to use outside of PvP, if you're max level in PvP, or just give you the item level. Like give you blues of that item level, or even up to. I think blue is probably like okay. I don't know. I see what he means by conflict on there, but at the same time, I don't think PvE here should affect PvP just because it's an MMO. It just never felt right to me, and I've always done PvP and PvE at the same time, and I still never liked or felt that system was fair in a way, which is a big thing in PvP. Most people is like, as long as it's fair, they're usually cool with it.
Vice versa.
I'll stop
and
trying to
it-
pause it
to
so
some
much,
extent-
otherwise this video is going to
That's
go
actually a
on
good, that's a good example.
all day.
That is unironically a very good example. Okay. Yep, true.
It's not really a good example because he didn't reflect on like who it was affecting badly. Even people who liked Torghast did not like that after like a month. So it's like it's not really a good example on why it took forever for them to change it. Because even people who they would be the advocates of it stopped liking it. So it's not a good example. At least in terms of like the initial part of it, yeah, that makes sense. But after like a while, like after like the first 2 months, it should have changed.
Like we can continue to separate out the ecosystems to solve these problems. We can say there's no crossover whatsoever, and you're basically playing a completely different game if you're doing this activity versus that activity.
You are though, to a degree. You definitely are, because you got scripted events and scripted fights to a large degree in PvE versus the complete chaos of PvP. So it is like you're playing two different games. How do you resolve that? You know, like why is that okay? But this, like, having the gear be different isn't. Because that's not like a completely different game, just to let you know.
Or to the extent that there's crossover, there's going to be some people who would prefer it weren't that way.
For sure, because I mean, one of the most common things, and I'm guilty of this, and what I can also honestly say after now we're here is, I definitely got to the point where I was so immersed in it and not happy that I definitely went overboard with where I was, which I think is the place you end up with because of a business relation. It's like ordinarily I just put the game down. I don't know whether it's an internal pressure, and I kind of think this goes back.
I don't think that's true. There's a lot of people who quit WoW who weren't content streamers who did not have a business relationship with WoW, who just quit WoW. Maybe they're coming back for Dragonflight just like you are. So, yeah, I think you're overestimating that relationship you have and the fact that it's like twisted your original relationship with the game. Because that's usually only the case if you have like no attachment to it.
Back all the way to Naxxramas, the original one, where it's like we've invested time and money into this content.
Yeah, you've got to finish
But if
it
we
off.
don't make them go,
Mhm.
they're not going to go. And I don't. It's that something that's a very real thing.
If you don't make them go, no one will go. That's definitely wrong. As long as you have any kind of incentive for doing it, some people who are going to want to do it are going to do it. It's similar to crafting. Like, you don't have to craft. You really don't. But if it's fun and you at least get something out of it, that's really all it needs. Side quests. Also, same thing. A lot of people do side quests, especially the interesting ones. They don't have to. They could do something else that would give them, like, better gear in a shorter time. But as long as you're giving something.
Oh, that's a good point. So he's saying, like, if you don't make something mandatory, do you worry that people won't do it?
I think it is a real thing. I think make is maybe too strong a word. But if we don't incentivize it, if we don't make it feel like you are progressing in some way as a result of it, then yeah, people probably won't do it. But I think
What about the Mage Tower?
Well, Mage Tower, you got something out of it. Not direct progression, but it was a transmog. So, I mean, but that's, as long as it's not to a degree where it's like a force thing.
The Mage Tower was extremely popular.
we made a zone full of awesome quests that literally offered no rewards. It's a hypothetical, right? No experience, no gold, no items, nothing at all. But it's really cool content. Most people wouldn't touch it. People who did might touch it once. And that's not to say that, you know, the people who would do it if you're doing it to level, who would do it if you're doing it to get a profession recipe, to whatever, are going to dislike it as a result. But at the end of the day, it is a game that, as part of just the core.
Well, that's also a case where if that was the norm, that'd be a little different. But WoW is not like that. Most MMOs are not like that. And most MMO players would not be okay with that. And I think that's the issue more than anything else. For example, reading a book in real life, or not like a physical book, you could be reading online. Technically, you're not getting anything out of that. No one's paying you. And a lot of time it's reading, like especially fantasy, like if you're into reading like nonfiction, it's not like you're going to gain actual skills from it. Maybe read a little quicker, like overall. Your reading skill goes a bit up. But people will read books like that all the time, and they still do it because that's the accepted. That's the norm with that kind of stuff. With games, though, that is not the norm. Games always have an incentive. You know, maybe a bit of experience, bit of gold, whatever it may be. So if you're doing something that literally gives nothing, then most people just aren't going to be that interested. Unless it's really, really cool, then maybe, because, like, for example, if it has a cutscene, most people would be interested in that. Because that's the reward, it's the cutscene. So,
RPG progression, you have a lot of goals, you're making your numbers go up, you're trying to overcome challenges, you're choosing how to spend your often limited time these days wisely, and you're going to spend that time doing things
That's another
that are
thing,
getting you
yep.
closer to your goals. Maybe like at the end of an expansion when you have no more other goals left, you might go back and chase cosmetics or do things that you haven't had a chance to just for completionist's sake. But those feel like lost opportunities when there's something out there that has potential that's just underutilized.
Yeah. So where do you draw the line?
Yeah, I think that's sometimes what happens is that people will not prioritize doing content if it's not mandatory, but I think that it's better to have content be optional in most circumstances. Like especially different types of like
practically all.
systems, and I think also like the content that's the worst whenever it's non-pseudo optional. What I mean by that is like, yeah, you cannot do it, but your character is at a disadvantage if you don't do it. So it's like, oh, everything's optional.
Torghast.
The game's optional. But like, if you want to maintain your character at a high level, you have to do this regularly.
Yeah.
I think it's whenever it is regular. So like, it would be one thing if you had to get the Torghast level 8, and then that was it. You beat layer 8,
Yep.
and then you can craft legendaries for free. But it's the fact that you have to do it every week.
Over
So
and
it's
over.
like these mandatory fun activities that you have to do all of the time. Right?
Yep.
Things like Suramar, for example, you only really had to do that once.
I love
in the main
Suramar.
character. It's not like you had to
It's
do
like
a
one of my favorite
Suramar,
things to do.
Quest line every single week. You had to do the same
How they gave you
quest line or
the-
something like that.
the
You do
withered.
new ones, and then after you were done,
Like, that was
it
such a
over.
unique game
Yeah,
mechanic.
and on every character too. Yeah, that's also another issue.
Then being incentivizing it via power. So
Yeah.
it's Torghast throwing the legendary requirement into
Yeah.
there. Versus,
Somebody made a great analogy and example is that the essence tiers in BFA, I think, were good because of this. As soon as you met that benchmark and you unlocked it, you were done. You beat the game. It's over. You have it, it's yours, and that's
Oh.
all there is to it.
Didn't play BFA, so don't know.
this gives you a cool mount. Do you see?
Obviously, they did not
And that's
bring that
good.
do you
over.
see a distinct difference in participation? Because it's like, oh, they'll just look at it, and I guess a good example of this would actually be challenge modes.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you know the participation rates there, which were purely cosmetic.
Bro, these guys could clear it in like 3 minutes. He can show the entire video of them clearing this dungeon. I watched every single one of these. These guys were fucking insane.
Rewards, right?
What are
That's all
these?
that challenge modes gave you was just a transmog.
Yeah,
And did
watch
that come
this.
across as perhaps a failure because not enough people did it?
I don't
Was
think
these
challenge modes were a
mythics?
failure. No, their participation was overall quite low. It got a bit better. I want to say, if I remember, towards the end of Mists, I think we added a decent chunk of valor for doing challenge mode runs that helped, like, it helped justify it to people who were just looking to cap their valor for the week. They could at least work towards something else at the same time. But it wasn't seen as a failure because I think it also, as someone who worked very directly on challenge modes, 10 years ago, it wasn't 30 people laboring to make this thing. It was, let's try an extra difficulty. Let's add an extra overlay on the content we're already making. And for the people who got a lot of value out of it, a lot of enjoyment out of it, that felt well worth what we put into it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But I think, yeah, you're correct. When we're
They should
looking at
definitely
the
do it with more
expansion feature
things.
like a Torghast. If that were only used by as many people as did Mist challenge modes, that would have been seen as a significant failure.
Yeah.
Like, we put a ton of time, design resources, engineering, art, iteration into this. If only 8% of our players did it, well then we should really we should have just put those resources into something else that
Yeah.
90% of our players were going to do, because we would have made more of our players happy. At the end of the day, like, that's the challenge we're trying to solve. It's
I think that those challenges becomes more okay that something like that is only participated in with like 8% of the population, Because whenever you only have 8% of the population to do something inside of one expansion, that's one thing. But for example, you can have something like pet battles, or you can have something like the Mage Tower is now, that is evergreen content. And I
Yep.
think that having content
Final
that
Fantasy
is
does
like
that
outdated after the expansion
way
that almost
more
nobody participated in,
than WoW.
I think that, yes, I would agree with Ian, that's bad. But I think that the longer that content is relevant and able to be participated in by players makes it more okay if less people participate in it. Because I don't think that like this is a one-to-one correlation that like
And that's what I was talking about Torghast. Like, obviously they couldn't keep it in Shadowlands, but maybe have it where, I don't know, some weird NPC dude, like the ethereal guys maybe, they somehow figured how to tap into Torghast from like anywhere. So now you see them in like like basically have a zone or something like that. Like they're in the major cities where you talk to them. They take you to their like little like dark moon fair kind of style, like they're its own little zone. Um, and they tap into like each freaking world's expansion and enemies. Because it doesn't have to be balanced. Like that's the thing. Like just make it kind of fun. Like you can't make it completely broken, but you know, or slowly add to it. Like I know I'd be looking forward to that.
the more people do something, the better it is. Like, for example, just because something has a lot of participation, that does not necessarily mean that players enjoy doing it.
Yep.
Like, I mean, I think Torghast is a great example of that.
Yeah, definitely. I liked it, of course, but I know some people didn't like it, so I don't think they should have been forced to play it.
Garrisons. Everybody had garrisons. Oh, not a lot of people liked it.
Yep.
Have a finite team, even as we grow, even as we hire. We have this
I
many.
think one of the big problems with Garrison, it was kind of boring, to be honest. And secondly, it wasn't like customizable. You know what I mean? Like you can't really do a lot with it. Like it was like housing, but like really crappy housing.
Any person hours of work that can be done this year.
Mm-hmm.
How do we deploy those? How do we allocate those in the way that's going to make the most fun for the most players?
Well, one of the things with Dragonflight that's changing is because obviously part of what I would consider the failure of Torghast is that people felt. I know that one of the reasons I stopped playing was I'd log on to my alt, and it was like, hey, I kind of need to farm a legendary. I kind of need to combat.
You know, one of the reasons I didn't like Torghast is I had to backtrack. I fucking hate backtracking. I hate going back and then, there's another little tunnel over here. You've got to go over there. Man, I want to have a straight fucking shot. You go through all the mobs. You kill all the bosses. That's why the Jailer's Gauntlet was good. I fucking hate backtracking. And then you have like these two fucking contradictory things. You have the completion percentage for time that it takes and the completion percentage for how many mobs you kill. So it's like, okay,
What are you talking about,
I have to
Torghast?
kill a lot of mobs, but I also want to make it do really fast. So it's like if you have to backtrack a lot, you feel like you're getting fucked. And so that's why it felt bad. Like if Torghast was like a straight shot, like some of the levels are.
I don't know. I think it was interesting because a lot of times you'd have to make those decisions. Like, okay, do I go off the direct path to try to kill more mobs, or do I just go on to try to cut the time, like shorten the time? So I actually kind of disagree with him. I mean, I see what he's saying. Like, it's a bit frustrating for those who want to 100% it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, just maybe choose a ranged class or like a really fast class. So I don't know. I kind of like when a game makes you make choices like that. So
It's way more fun. And whenever I do the levels that are straight shots, I have more fun. It's better.
I mean, it should definitely be a mix and match. That way, it's a little bit of both. It honestly, I don't really care enough to where if they changed it to his way, that it would have affected my experience too much. I don't know. I think either or would have been fine.
Please do this. And as somebody, as I'm sure you're aware, I was a huge champion of Torghast. Like I had a great interview with Morgan.
So was I.
About Torghast, and then a lot of it changed. And I was like, this is just killing my soul.
I don't think that a lot of Torghast really changed. I think that the problem really is that a lot of Torghast didn't change. It didn't get innovated enough.
Yep.
And I think that they only really started innovating on it with like the Jailer's Gauntlet, which was really cool. And then the Infinite Corridor, Creeping Corridor, whatever it was, that was really cool too. but
Oh, I didn't
that
play
was
that.
like a one and done type thing. And yeah, I do
That
think
sucks.
Torghast was good, absolutely, but you just need to.
The general Torghast idea, I know a lot of people liked. Like, I didn't really hear anything bad about it. It only became, like, when I was hearing, like, bad things on Torghast was when it came Chorghast.
Make it better over time. I do think that people would view Torghast as a good system and enjoy it more if they didn't have to do it. I think having to do it is what made people not like it.
Exactly.
You know, it made me very unhappy. It's like, where do you then? Is that just a case of looking at alt friendliness for that?
Yeah, actually, Nixie brings up a really good point, and I totally agree with it. In my opinion, the best iteration of Torghast was the window of time where you were progressing the talent tree with talent knowledge, or with tower knowledge, and the new 5-star system. Yeah, like right whenever you were first initially getting your new levels, because like that's whenever a roguelite is fun, is whenever you have a roguelike. Excuse me, not roguelite. A roguelike is fun is whenever you're like building up your power and you're getting better stuff and you're able to like, you know, reach heights that you weren't able to before. You get the new unlock, you can do something. Yeah, to me, I think that was badass.
Yep. That's when I played it, actually. That's why I thought it was so good.
This is Dragonflight, where you actually completely smashed this out of the park.
It's there's a few pieces to that. I think even aside from alt friendliness, which was clearly an issue there, I think that the mandatory weekly loop, the feeling that you have to do this basically every week, essentially forever. And if you miss a week, you're falling behind. And if you put it off, you know, I think that's something that got us thinking a lot about just the player psychology of how people approach mandatory things with expiration date, perceived chores, like that feeling of maybe it's Monday or it's Tuesday if you're
I really perceived it was.
Yeah, and you feel like you have to do it. Like, you know, you've got to stay up late, and it's like, oh, fuck, I didn't do Torghast. I have to do Torghast today.
And the last day of the week is what I'm talking about.
Oh,
so Tuesday,
okay.
You're in Europe.
Yeah, all right.
You had a long day at work, then you went out for dinner with your friends, with your loved ones, whatever. You come home, you're exhausted, and you realize, like, oh, crap, I haven't done my Torghast run
Been
for
there
the
many
week.
times.
Exactly.
The worst game for this is Lost Ark.
Does that make you feel good about World of Warcraft?
That's why I stopped playing Lost Ark.
Absolutely not. And so,
because I really like the
you
completion.
You either do something you
of the
don't want
maps,
to do,
but-
or you lose.
that to people, and there's a lot of ways around that. There's, you know, it's catch-up mechanisms, so that, you know, if you knew that if you missed it this week, you could just catch up and do 2 next week or whatever. Suddenly, the psychology is very different.
Yeah.
If there's more flexibility and, you know, you can do multiple weeks in a row, or if there's just if it's less of an exclusive reward that only comes from this one source. Now suddenly it's fine. Yeah, you're tired tonight. You had fun doing other things. You don't have to log in when you don't want to. But in any case, getting back to Torghast, I think, yeah, it was gameplay that was kind of forced to overstay its welcome in a lot of ways, because it became something that you had to keep doing for as long as people did.
Totally agree.
Something that we've tried to pivot to, and I know you mentioned you didn't personally jump in and do Zareth Mortis.
No.
But part of how we approached the activities there, the cipher system, the reputations, the outdoor loop, was basically, we're going to give you a couple of weeks of the first couple of weeks. We're going to say, here's frankly a carrot that you
I actually want to go and do the quest line there. I never did.
To craft your Unity legendary. That's the second
I'll
one.
probably do it once I'm kind of bored of
Doing that's gonna
Dragonflight.
take
I'm
you a
working
couple
on
of
like
weeks of checking
past
out the
stuff.
content. Past that, everything is 100% optional, but you've seen it all. And you can decide whether you like it or not. And if you like it, you've gotten a taste and you can keep going. And if you don't, cool. Just never go back. You can ignore it and focus on Mythic Plus, raids, whatever else.
I think Zareth Mortis was good.
That's what I heard.
Yeah,
I really
Zareth
want to play
Mortis
it now.
was actually a good zone. The only part about Zareth Mortis that I legitimately did not like was farming Genesis motes. I think farming Genesis motes was boring, mind-numbing, pointless, bad design. I don't know who the fuck thought this was a good idea. Everything else, however, very good.
It's a little bit of a middle ground between there being no mandatory power at all, where a lot of people who might have enjoyed the content will never even give it a chance because they're like, well, why am I going to do that? It doesn't give me anything. Or obviously the opposite end of the spectrum, where it just becomes an endless thing that you have to keep doing.
I don't have a problem with like new content getting added into the game and then having to do it. But again, the reason why players were okay with Zereth Mortis and having that unlock your second legendary is because they didn't have to do it every week. It's not like you had to, okay, you have to complete the Bolvar weekly quest in order for your second legendary to be active this week. No, you just do it once and then it's over.
You take
That's
a
what
pretty
made it
hard
good.
stance. From my playtesting of Dragonblight, this has now become almost a core value of.
I think that's why I
forward, or
like
some of
watching
the
these
videos
videos that has
we've seen about
Asmon's
today.
commentary.
It's like just no more of that, no more mandatory stuff. And is there like an internal fear?
It's
there?
like watching two
I
videos
feel
in
like
one.
there's always going to be mandatory stuff, but I think that the mandatory fun in Legion, BFA, and Shadowlands, and I think it was less in Shadowlands. It was a lot less in Shadowlands compared to BFA. It was a huge improvement, but I think that it was just way too much. Like I think that's why people miss WoD. That's why people say that they liked WoD more than Shadowlands or BFA, is because they didn't have to log on and play the game like a mandatory 8 hours a week.
Yeah.
Are we making stuff now that people aren't going to check out? And
I didn't play WoD too much either.
Because a lot of games
Got bored of the
now are going with a
garrisons.
drop in, drop out style, and they're still maintaining a sub. Is that something? I mean, this is a risky move you're
just
making.
Final
Dragonblight,
Fantasy.
internally.
I think so. The concept of mandatory, I do think, only applies to a certain portion of the player base. I think it's certainly, a high-end competitive players, if there's any advantage that they can get, they have to get it.
Yeah.
Well understood. But I
There
think
it is.
some of what we're also moving away from that lets us, like systems like Renown or Outdoor World Loop, they have powerful rewards from them. You can make, this profession crafting reagents at the end of a Renown tracks that will let you make 402.
This is pretty
plus
interesting.
gear that is
I
heroic
really want to
rage
work
mode.
on this.
There are other, profession recipes and other things.
I don't think this is affected by your ults though, which is the only thing I'm kind of not liking. I don't think it's like account wide.
That people will look at and want, but the Mythic Raider who's looking to, push for the Hall of Fame isn't going to look at any of those things and say,
Yeah, this is totally fine, by the way. I have no issue with Renown. Like, people that are complaining about, who gives a fuck? Magic-bound chests? What is this? Like, what's the next one?
oh no, this stuff I need from this that I...
Researching and comfort, ancient waygate? Who the fuck cares?
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be there. Should have some things of value, obviously, because otherwise it's... You don't want to do something that's going to take a while, then it feels like it gave you garbage. But, yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be, like, required to reach endgame.
Like, I'm sorry, I did this is like, I don't get, who cares about, why are you getting upset about it? Gives a fuck.
can't get elsewhere, therefore I have to do it.
Bonus
And
supplies.
some of that is just a product.
Oh, guys, did you see that last one? Oh no! Wait a second. You can get a tabard? Oh my god! FOMO is out of control. Explosive archaeology? I need that to raid. Another ancient waygate.
A product of moving away from
Jesus.
the auxiliaries, so-called borrowed power alternate advancement systems that we had in the last few expansions. Item level is kind of the simple universal reward. Item level is power, but it's fungible. You can get it from other sources, and it's only as valuable as how it compares to the other stuff you have access to, as opposed to artifact power, essences for your Heart of Azeroth, conduits, all those other things where it didn't matter how high your item was from other content. You had to do this because it was additive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But they were great things, though. Like, it was always the acquisition that was the problem. Like, the actual result, great. I just don't want to farm 50,000 honor in Battlegrounds, you know? Like, the actual system itself. And
it used to be 100, too. Then they nerfed it.
Azerite Armor in particular is one that I'm deeply upset about. Because I genuinely thought item level is something, and again, it's personal bias, I have no issue with Mr. Does his World Quest having the same item level as Mythic Raider. But Azerite Armor seemed to perhaps open the door to be like, well, we can tailor this now to world questing and your experience. We can do it for PvP. We can do it for Mythic Plus, make 5-man more fun.
Well, they did have, to be fair, they did have, you know, like there was like that secondary stat corruption bonus for Azerite gear that came out of Nilotha. There was like a PvP Azerite gear that you got out of your box. Like there was some of this.
Things. It didn't go that way, unfortunately. You know, it's kind of the set bonuses that are out there. But now you are upping the rewards from Mythic Plus. giving those guys natural appeasing people like JB, so you can actually stop raiding for the most part. And is that something that's also changing long term, or is there still an idea of if you're not raiding or doing high Mythic Plus or high in PvP, you should still be a bit lower?
I think that you should have to do hard content to get good gear.
I don't agree. I think that should be the quickest way to get high-end gear. Definitely. But I think there should be other ways, especially now that they've upped crafting, to be able to get to that. It just takes longer. I think it should pretty much what would take you a week now takes you 2 or 3 kind of thing. Obviously, don't make it way, way bad because otherwise it just feels terrible. But yeah, I think it should be possible. Like, because by that, like, what exactly is hard about it? Like, I would agree only if you had. Oh, wow, that really went down. If there was solo hard content you could do, just like there's multiple group content you can do, hard group content, there should be solo hard content that kind of rewards. Maybe not as quickly, but kind of the same thing. But either way, I don't think it should just be relying on hard group content.
I do not think that this is a positive that somebody who does not play the game or does world quests needs to. You don't need Mythic Raid gear.
By that logic, you shouldn't need Mythic Raid gear either if they just reduced it, like, kept the numbers roughly the same and just added more mechanics. Like, the gear then wouldn't really make a difference. So that's kind of a moot point. Yeah, and it's like, okay, so those people who get like the best of the best gear, and there's nothing after that. So why did they need that gear also? Like that's an argument that doesn't go anywhere. So
Because if you do, then why would somebody Mythic Raid? I guarantee you guys, you take gear out of Mythic Raiding, Mythic Raiding dies.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a little bit of there's still a spectrum there. Eye level, is if you want 415, 421 type gear in Dragonflight, you're going to need to do high-end PvP,
yeah,
high-end rating, high-end Mythic Plus.
Mm-hmm.
We do want outdoor play and certainly professions to be able to push farther into that track than they ever have before.
I think that's a great thing. I remember back in Mists of Pandaria, because like the person that I use as a benchmark for this was the way that my mom played the game. Is that in Burning Crusade, she actually had pretty good gear because she could craft a bunch of the gear, she could buy BOEs, and then even in Mists of Pandaria, she had full 535 gear because she was able to use the Burdens of Eternity on her gear in Timeless Isle. So, like, giving players that are solo players and casual players a means of progression, I think is very important and very good. You need to give those players progression because I don't like this mindset that, like, oh, casual players don't care about gear. That's so stupid. Like,
that's what I was
players
talking.
love.
That's exactly what I was talking about. Giving something to work towards to get that final gear. So. Yeah, no, I mean he brought it up himself, so that's what I was saying like before. Like it didn't really make sense what he was saying before, but yeah, that makes more sense.
Gear. They probably care about it in some cases more than raiders do because they need the gear to be able to do the content because their gear sucks otherwise.
Yep.
So yeah, 100% you need to give casual players gear that they can progress and work towards and get over time. And that gear, the end result of that gear being comparable with like normal or maybe heroic level raid gear that like takes way longer to get, I don't think that's a bad thing.
So by logic, why can't you just put it towards mythic gear? Just take even longer. Like that's the thing I don't get. Like obviously, like getting full mythic grade gear should be like a crazy long journey for those who aren't doing those kind of content, but should still be an option. That's really it. Like adding just the option there, even if it's not like optimal.
I really don't think so. But I do think that for like top tier item level, you should be able to get top tier item level from 3 different things: Mythic rating, Mythic plus, and Arena.
Why? That would be my question. Let me see if he answers, because it's like that seems really old of thinking. Like that's like saying prior to Mythic Plus, like you could only like I remember the argument back when Mythic Plus was coming around that Mythic Plus should not give you the same as a Mythic rating. The same argument holds here. Like why does it have to be those 3 things and only those 3 things? Because you do those things and therefore you think that should only revolve around what you do? Let me see what he says.
Oh, rated PvP. Like solo shuffle RBGs are also included in that. That's it.
I think at times in the past it's felt like
Just because you feel like it. So no explanation on why, just because you feel like it. The only thing I can think of is because you tie them to skill level, and skill level would equal that, but at the same time it doesn't. Let's be fair, you have the GDKP, so you can literally buy your freaking way to the max level gear. So I don't know. I really disagree with that. And the fact that he didn't explain it, I'm assuming it's just coming from like a place of emotion versus reason.
if you were a solo player, well, you kind of capped out at maybe you can get a couple of normal modes.
And I also, sorry, I keep pausing because I keep having other things I want to think about. I don't think it's a big deal if like a profession can craft like 2 or 3 really good items. What I mean is like getting decked out.
Why? If he doesn't say why, then I'm really not going to stop and question these anymore, because he's not even explaining like the reason behind it.
I think it's fine if like a profession or like reputation or some sort of like farming thing gives you like 1 or 2 pieces of bis. Yeah, who cares? But like getting fully bissed out, you should have to actually do the hard content. Yeah, like Lionheart Helm. Yeah, like you get Lionheart Helm.
Why?
That's great. Well, what the fuck are you gonna do about your necklace? You gonna get Band of Acuria? You gotta fucking raid.
So you want Torghast. You want content that is absolutely necessary. Is basically what you just said, even though before you said it should be options available, but now you're negging on it because I don't know. I'm assuming because I really don't know the mind here. Like,
The raid pieces, and otherwise you were like 30 eye levels behind the Mythic Raider.
I would really love to speak to him on that, because it's like it doesn't really make sense to me. I don't think it should be easy by any means. I think the most ideal one would be to do Mythic rating, Mythic plus, whatever it is.
That's I think too large a gap, and something we'd like to close. And that's really speaking, getting back to some of the earlier conversation about player groups and silent majorities and so forth.
Because my main thing is this: if you have enough gold, you can do it. So why put these weird arbitrary barriers on it? So
We do feel like we have underserved the just solo outdoor focused player who chooses to spend tons and tons of time in World of Warcraft over the years. And
I think that's completely true. And I think that's
Yeah.
remember what I was telling you guys about how I think WoW loses people in the middle 80%?
But it's true, but you want to keep it as true. Like that's, you said some pieces of bisque here, but it's like, why not all of it? Like that's the thing I don't get, is like, if you're willing to devote the time into a game to that level, why gatekeep them on that? Like that's a gatekeeping mentality,
Where they keep the bottom
which is what Mythic Plus was like really pushing against for a while there, because they didn't get as good as gear. So I don't know,
10% and the top 10% of players.
because Mythic Plus dungeons isn't as hard as Mythic Plus rating. It just isn't. There's much fewer people to fuck up, so it's just generally easier,
Happy, but they lose
which is why it was such a big appeal.
people in the middle 80%. I think that is what really happened. is that those are the people that moved over to Final Fantasy. Those are the people that stopped playing. I know, like, my mom stopped playing the game in BFA because she said, I farmed fucking flying in WoD. I farmed it again in Legion, and you took it away from me the third time. Nope. I'm done. And that was
That's not really a big problem for most players, and I think she didn't really know exactly what triggered it. I could be mistaken. Maybe that is really just it. But I know for a lot of people, it wasn't exactly like losing flying for a bit, because obviously it does make sense. I think they should have just kept it where you unlock it after doing the main storyline, whatever it that is. You know what I mean? Like once you complete the end of it, boom, flying's unlocked. Because I understand WoW's point of view on why they took away flying, because they want you to experience the world kind of slowly, not just fly through everything as quick as possible. I mean, at the same time, like, it's not a big deal if they didn't take flying away. But I think that was the case. Like, it's a chore. Like, that's the biggest problem with it, is that it becomes a chore. Hence, chore gas and why it's so unpopular. Anything that's a chore, like unlocking flying, it was a pain in the butt. And that's really all it is to it. Like, if they made it easy, completed the main quest line, because most people are going to do that anyways. And if you're not, then you probably didn't need flying to begin with. Let's be fair. Probably quit. So it's like, that's really all it comes down to, is back to the forced grind. Even if you kind of find it fun, being forced to do it is annoying.
was it. So yeah, and like for her, there was no real progression that she could have in the game. It just wasn't meaningful. It didn't matter. So she quit.
They care about progression too.
Yep.
And I think it's often inaccurate to just assume, oh, well, because you're not trying to push high keys, why do you even need item level?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, people
That's to you, Asmon.
want the number to go up.
Which you both said and then contradicted yourself immediately after, at least in terms of like the highest level gear, which still doesn't, like, why that argument falls off at the high end gear doesn't make sense to me.
Speaking
Yeah,
to Ian this
everybody
time
does.
really opened my eyes.
I hope that also was an insight that they got out of Classic WoW, is that even casuals would like min-max getting a blue item in Classic WoW. Everybody loves to get better gear. If you don't like getting better gear, you're probably not playing WoW.
Some things, and probably something
You wouldn't
that
be playing
guys would
MMOs in
guilty of
general.
as much as me. Why don't the devs listen to us? I spent months, years of my life shouting from the rooftops about things that I considered to be obvious problems, and in many cases did turn out to be.
That's exactly right. See, I have no problem with the things like, okay, Blizzard thinks LFR is good. I think LFR sucks. This is a disagreement, okay? That's fine. But holy fuck, why did it take so long to get rid of conduit energy? Why did Azerite gear still require a bunch of gold to reset the talents? Why did this happen?
So why is that not getting back to them?
You know, it'd be interesting if they did. You know how GDKPs obviously are a thing, but what if it's system GDKPs? Like, for example, like your guild is good enough to where you can go without a few people, but if you queue up, like say there was a queue for it, right? Your guild queues up and you're missing like a number of people, and depending on the amount of that number, you get a reward for each boss you kill, like a gold reward or something like that. To incentivize guilds bringing around solo players if you don't like LFR kind of thing. I don't know. I think that's just another alternative.
Well, it turns out it is a lot more than you guys probably realize. I spent the entire week with the communications team. Those were the guys who were guiding us around, and they were absolutely incredible. But one of the things they really stressed to us is how much on a weekly basis they gather as much information as possible from the community, reading forums, subreddits, everything, watching videos, and feed that back directly to the people in charge. Some of you might scoff that no, they don't, but to clarify this,
Oh, I think that they do.
I think most people knew that they did. It's just most people were like, well, they aren't doing anything with that. So it's kind of, it's that more than the other. You know what I mean? Like them not acting on it versus them actually getting the feedback.
just don't think that they act on it fast enough.
Yep.
I think that they absolutely, it's not that they don't know it's a problem. I think that
They
they
just
know
don't do
it's
anything.
a problem and they put it in because it's a problem. That's what makes me annoyed. Makes me mad. Makes me paranoid. And this is what I was worried about with Dragonflight, is like systems that get put into the game that are intentionally dysfunctional to be fixed later for content patches.
We spoke to Josh Allen, aka Law. He was with Blizzard for 9 years on the communication team itself, has no reason to lie, and the only reason he left Blizzard was because such a large advancement in his career came up elsewhere. Well, that's one thing we learned from the current community manager team is like, I was like, what is your day-to-day job then? And they're like, well, we get like the patch notes and we sift through those things that are relevant because a lot of them are like bullshit data side things that nobody cares about. And then we put them out to the public. But another part of it is we basically read forums a lot and we gather all that feedback and then we present that to the relevant people to say, this is the kind of community feel right now. Did you feel like you had to filter that for like what's relevant, what's not?
Yeah, I mean, that was, so
What's
there was a
this here?
significant portion
Reagent bag, then no slot at all. Okay.
of my time at Blizzard where developers
I haven't heard this argument. Instead of just adding a new back slot, add a specific reagent, I wouldn't mind it if the reagent bags were like twice as good as the normal bags. But the fact that they're about the same, that's what kind of bothers me. Like, why even have the reagent bag if it's the same thing as just adding a new bag? Like, it should have been like double its size or something like that. I don't know. I think that's the problem. Like, there's nothing different about it. It's just a bag that can only, like a specialized bag that has no other benefits.
developer communications was my job. And then my job got
Because what they could have done was add an extra bag slot, but have it where you can maybe right click a bag and then assign it a thing like maybe region bag, equipment bag, I don't, like kind of stuff like that vein. Would have been more better if they weren't going to do anything with this region bag. You know what I mean? Like maybe a region bag has it where I don't even know what they could do with it other than just making it like twice as good.
reconfigured into being more influencer focused, and everyone was like, why does Lore hate us now? He doesn't talk on the forums anymore. I'm like, well, yes, that's because it's not my job anymore.
I had multiple interactions with Lore. Every single one of them was positive. I have nothing but good things to say about Lore.
I'm no longer doing that specific task. There are other people doing that task. Go listen to them. Yeah, there was a lot of that general job and position is not even so much filtering as, I guess, distilling is how I would put it.
Make sure it goes to the right place.
Yeah, make sure it goes to the right place. Make sure that, because a lot of times people will say one thing and what they actually mean is kind of something else. Like, they still mean what they say, obviously, but...
Yeah, people want something, but they need something else. Yeah, sure, of course that makes sense.
If it's like, wow, I really hate... like Torghast was a great example where people were like, they really, really loved Torghast in early beta.
So,
and then when it came out, they were like, wow, I hate Torghast so much. And
I will also argue that I think Torghast on beta sucked. Like, whenever I go back and I look at it again, I think it sucked. The thing is, like, you went from like level 25 to 72. I remember this. And by the time that you were level 30 or level 35, every other level did not matter. Because you were already so powerful,
Yeah.
you would never encounter a challenge that you couldn't overcome.
Yep.
You would never lose. So, like, if you didn't lose in the first, like, 5 or 10 levels, you'll never lose. It's bad design.
And the takeaway from that was, okay, what changed? And what changed was rewards were added to it. And so then it became a
Yes.
both,
task.
right? They took rewards out because they had gear and stuff in it originally.
Well, it's also people were not able to get they were not able to get so many powers in Torghast that their character became like a Goku fan fiction. So that's a big reason.
They got silly. They took all that out and then they just made you do it for legendaries, which was a complete like 180 on what it originally was.
That's what I mean, though. Is like, it's the sort of thing where if Torghast had just remained as like a fun thing that you could go do when you felt like it, I think a lot of people would have enjoyed it because they didn't feel obligated to do it. But as soon as you add that obligation, that was the point where it became a chore for people, and it became Torghast at that point.
True.
And so that was the sort of thing that, like,
Yeah, they should just tied it with either rep or gold.
But the majority of the reason we can tell from reading all
Like something you can get from pretty much
obviously
anywhere else.
There's a variety of opinions as well, so it's always a matter of like what are the biggest pain points to be discovered, because like occasionally there are some people just like, I don't
Really
like the
wish
way
they
the
would
Ghost
bring it
Boys
back
look.
to a degree, like
Yeah.
like the
Valid
roguelike
opinion, you're allowed
Right.
to not like the ghosty
stuff
boys,
about
but
it.
that's
That power's
not what
over.
I'm going
It's
to take to
amazing.
the development
Overpowered.
team as like a priority issue that needs fixing.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean by
I
like,
do think that a meta level that Torghast is visually non-diverse, I think is relevant.
Yeah, that's why I said they should have
I
got
think,
the
like, you have,
ethereals,
like,
like their
the-
time stuff.
You have the red and black and gray, and then you
Or
also
time.
have black
Uh,
and black.
I think
and
they're
gray.
portally, right? I don't remember.
like sometimes people are saying,
But they like
who just say
collecting
they hate
things.
something,
Yes.
and you have to spend some time figuring out, okay, why do they hate this?
Yeah.
What about it is
I mean,
the
it's no
actual
different
problem?
from YouTube comments. It's like, I fucking hate the sound of his voice. Okay, do you hate my accent? Do you hate the microphone I'm using?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I too loud?
Yep.
Am I not normalized properly? Like, trying to figure it out, or is it just, you just hate the sound of
It's
my voice?
actually your face. So
Yeah.
It's actually, there's plenty of people that don't like somebody because of what they're saying, and then they make it out like it's something else.
Which is odd because they specifically said my voice. But now I see in the mirror, it's probably that. I said, but most of the feedback does get back to the guys, to the developers, which, like,
Yeah.
obviously one of the biggest complaints
Why
in the
does
WoW
it take so
community
long?
is, like, they're not listening to us. I've been bitching about this. I mean, nobody knows better than me is how much I bitched about some of the things in
Yeah,
Shadowlands.
why does it take so long?
But they do generally get most of the stuff there, which is surprising when you find out. It's like, yeah, they do. They kind of
Yeah.
do.
yeah, if people are, especially once a point becomes like, well, everyone knows that no one likes this thing. It's like, well, yes, everyone also includes the development team by this point. You can be fairly confident in that. And a lot of times, then the job actually, it gets interesting because a lot of times then the job becomes, okay, what are the other things? Because everyone's talking about this one thing that's really upsetting everyone right now. I don't need to tell the development team for the 30th time that people want to be able to switch between covenants. Like, they know that. I don't need to tell them that again.
Yeah.
So what are the other topics that are going on in the community that they're not aware of because everyone's so busy focused talking about this thing? And so making sure that those other bits of feedback and those other smaller conversations.
Well, if you
still
fix
make
it,
to the development,
you
team.
stop getting
it's
it.
not like trying to like distract them from the more important conversation or anything. It's
Well, we need to talk about right now. Blizzard, you watching this? You say you watch a lot of the videos? All right, listen to this shit, okay? Why the fuck do I have to go on a rogue to go kill a rare in Ardenweald to get a dagger? Why can't it just drop for my warrior? Why are there class and specialization specific loot tables for rare spawns in the open world?
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Why the fuck
That's stupid.
is it that it took me 150 fucking boxes, probably 200 boxes of Necro Ray eggs? I still don't have one. And I need 3. You talk about fucking Mists of Pandaria. What about Shadowlands? Who fix those mounts? There's a lot of those things that could be a lot better.
just that work doesn't need to be done. But yeah, like, so a lot of time there's been
It's
cases in
annoying.
the past where it's like, okay, we like the team would learn about what the features were in the upcoming expansion, and I would be like, okay, that feature is the one everyone's going to hate. Like, I can tell already what's going on here is
You've got to remember, Lore used to be a content creator. So it's like, yeah, he knows. It's like, okay, yep, people are going to not like this one. Yep, absolutely.
people are going to be very upset about this.
So like me
because-
with Covenants. I mean, I knew in 2 minutes it was like, this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Everybody knew.
Yeah, Covenants was a weird one just because I did not fully understand what it was for a while. Because imagine Covenants ended up being a pretty convoluted, especially with like you add in soulbinds and everything
Oh,
as well.
yeah,
Ended up being a
conduits.
pretty complicated and convoluted system. Imagine if none of that work had been done yet and someone was just trying to vaguely describe what it was going to be to you. That was the state
Yeah.
that I was receiving this information in. So I was like, I
That
don't
makes sense.
understand
Like
it
us
yet.
at
I don't know
BlizzCon,
what
Yeah.
it is.
they were
Yeah.
announced, and
Yeah.
we're like, we
Also,
all
things
started
on
filling the
paper
gaps
don't always
ourselves. Like, that's what happens. And I came up with a really thorough RPG storytelling thing. and all
reflect
this,
what
and
it
I was
actually
like,
is.
These are going to be awesome.
That's one of my favorite like pitfalls that I try to warn people about with like every job that I've had and every announcement that I've been a part of is like, please be sure you're ready to talk about something in a complete sense before you start talking about it. Because if you just throw out like a vague idea of like, here's what this is going to be, we have this idea to build something that's kind of like this, they will fill in the blanks.
Like whenever we had the shipyard
Yep.
in Wad, and I was like, God damn, we're going to be sailing around in a ship. Man. Yeah. Island expedition. So we're gonna sail the different islands? Bro, it's crazy. What the fuck? That's cool. Oh my god, there's Kultiris and they got a bunch of boats. I could put everything together here. Yeah, we're gonna get our own boat. We're gonna sail around. Oh my god, it's gonna be awesome.
And you
they
can't
will
blame them.
either-
Warfront.
If they're feeling negative, they will fill in the blanks with all negative things about how this is going to be the worst thing that they've ever experienced.
Absolutely.
And thus they will hate your thing before you've even made it.
Yep.
Or they will build it up to be this amazing, like huge, groundbreaking thing like Island Expeditions. This happened with Island Expeditions in BFA, where everyone was like, "Oh my God, we're gonna go to all these islands, and it's gonna be like this really cool, like PVE but kind of PvP-ish sort of thing."
I heard
It's gonna
about
be
that.
great, and we're
Yep.
unearthing these
And I wasn't even
artifacts
playing the
finding
game, and
all
I
this
heard
cool
about it.
stuff. And
Exactly.
they're like, "Wait, this is just
True.
the thing that you queue for? That's like,
It gives you half power really quick. Azrael
it's just
power
the
as opposed
scenarios
to-
again." Like,
Yeah, kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
They've sold that as. I think Garrisons is probably the worst situation ever because Garrisons are like, you're gonna get to build it.
like
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
They've sold that as. I think Garrisons is probably the worst situation ever because
Just there it is. All right, well, yeah, it pretty much settles it. Pretty much the
Garrisons
worst
are
ever.
like, you're gonna get to build it, and immediately the impression you get is, I'm gonna get to customize this shit. I'm gonna, like, as an old school classic
Yeah.
raider, I'm gonna have like Onyxia and Nefarian's heads like facing each other, and then I'm
Exactly.
gonna be able to have the tail around the building.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna customize it, and then when we got it, it was like, well, this somebody has a stables here and someone has a stables
yeah.
here. And that's kind of the limit of your customization that you're gonna get.
Yeah, that's also why I think it's important to like have started building something before you start talking about it too much. Like just the nature of software and game development, especially at on a team the size of the World of Warcraft team, means that until you've built most of it, you kind of don't know what it is yet.
So now we know our feedback on streams, forums, YouTube, whatever, it all gets back to the devs on a pretty much weekly basis. And we're going to hear far more from Josh. His own interview we'll be uploading a little bit after this goes out.
Still hasn't gone over
I
why it
found
takes so
out
long.
why things don't change. Because you guys probably have the same
All right, let's fucking hear it.
It's the moment
I'm
of truth.
ready. Yeah, why the fuck did it take a year? Here we
right?
go.
We're moaning about it. We're complaining about it. Why is this feature not being iterated on, developed in some way? Suggestions we're putting forward not happening. This is when I learned about modular design. Modular design is a system that's been in place for a really long time and is going to be changing. In order to find out more about this idea, we're not only going to sit down with Ian again, but we're going to sit down with Tina Wang, who's the Associate Art Director of World of Warcraft, and Morgan Day, the Associate Game Director.
I'm sorry, but any sort of a design pipeline explanation for why something takes a year will not be sufficient to me.
I think that's the case with most. Because here's the thing, like, if it takes you a year to fix something that everyone hates, that's bad business. Like any business, that's bad business. Like you can't name something that is not the case. Like the only ones who can do that are ones that are like government run or have no competition. You do that with anything, it's just bad. Like it's a bad design.
Yeah, this will not be sufficient. We'll listen and hear this out, but okay.
I have a feeling it's just
Over
garbage.
the years, you guys have fell into a habit of
Corporate
almost cannibalizing
garbage.
your own game with every patch.
Yeah.
Which felt very wasteful. Like
Bad.
I can't imagine the R&D that went into some of these systems, dungeons. I mean, if you go back to Kata, it was like, and Wrath. Every time the TOC came out, right, every other dungeon's irrelevant now. No point in doing it. And the same with raids, and obviously there's arguments to and for linear raids. But Season 4, you've started to maybe consider, we've actually seen
This
this
is a great question.
happen in a number of other MMOs recently, certainly the ones that are a decade plus, where they're like, we have a wealth of
Yeah.
content that we've created over these years, and we've just left it. There definitely seems to have been a lack of iteration in Blizzard. Like Garrisons, Garrisons are remembered not fondly, unfortunately, but the premise is really good. It's just people like maybe a more cosmetic style than a practical solution. Warfronts.
Yeah.
How excited was the player base when Warfronts were announced?
I was excited.
And unfortunately, it didn't go that way. Same with Island Expeditions. You know, we all watched the Sneaky Pete promise, and you're going to hate these guys, and they're going to interfere with you and stuff. And then part of the mandatory element was
Yeah.
there. But
Well, I remember that was another example, right? Remember whenever y'all do island expeditions and you get the sneaky Pete team, it was easy, but then you get that one team where they didn't have a healer and it was like 2 blood death knights and like a fucking elemental shaman, and they would just like kill you instantaneously. And it's like every other team was 1200 rating and these guys were like 2400. Yeah, that was so fucking annoying.
we can reel a list off here of huge systems, huge
Mhm.
resources that brought into the game, which have been left to like, okay, and class
Yeah.
halls I would definitely put in here, which feel like such a waste.
Yeah, they're not
And
even
what
in
is
the
the
game anymore.
thoughts there now for like over the next few years is to change that instead of reinventing the wheel every expansion.
Yeah, I think, I mean, so there's a couple of pieces to that. Some of that is definitely the move away from, you know, expansion specific systems that also would turn into borrowed whatever
Mhm.
because they were going to go away, back to evergreen improvements. I think, broadly speaking,
Great.
I think you could almost carve out 3 eras.
They haven't done that with Dragonflight that I've seen, unless they make dragon riding like world, like use anywhere, which they definitely should. You can't, but they should.
Of World of Warcraft philosophy and development.
Or maybe you can. I don't think so though.
WoW to Wrath, Cataclysm to Mists of Pandaria, or till WoD, and then Legion onward.
I would say that the first era was from Classic all the way through Mists of Pandaria, where every expansion was
Dang.
adding extra layers,
Oh.
extra systems, new professions, new races, new
Okay.
classes,
Okay.
new things. And then we kind of reached, as we were coming up on almost 10 years at that point, a turning point, arguably a bit of a crisis, as we were coming off like 2 expansions in a row. We'd have
The reason why this was a turning point is because of Raw Den. So basically, I think that in a 32-bit system, the largest integer that can be processed is 2.1 billion something, or 2.2 billion. It's 2 point something billion, 2.147 billion. Raw Den had a mechanic that increased his health in Throne of Thunder. And his health would get increased, but because the system could not process a number that high, his health would then go back down and it would bug out. And that's why Garrosh in Siege of Orgrimmar has so many different phases. It's so they can get around that integer cap.
That's interesting.
like 12 to 13 month final tiers.
Did not know that.
And just looking at like this infinite scalability, like this infinite exponential growth of like what it takes to make an expansion, both in terms of development, but also
I hate
player
this
facing
boss.
complexity of like how many
Such a
systems
bad
do we
boss.
have now?
Fuck
How
this
just
boss.
complicated is the game becoming? We're going to keep running this game for years and years and decades to come.
And this is what I'm saying. Like, I said the same shit. Like, everybody said Mists of Pandaria was so good, and I think that if you play WoW all the time and you were a serious WoW player, you probably thought that. But the game was way too fucking complex. Way too complex. And this is coming from
Yeah, I ended up having I quit Miss Pandaria after raiding a bit and discovering like it's just too much, man.
somebody who got, like, fucking rank 1 parses in Mists of Pandaria. I was top fucking DPS, I was top achievement points, and I was top item level. On my server in Mists of Pandaria, I didn't have a job. It was way too fucking complex.
Can we really just keep adding new permanent systems every couple of years forever? No. And so I think, you know, that's what led to some of the
scaling
class
back.
pruning philosophy that went into Warlords. It's what led it to kind of pulling back in some areas, but also the idea that we needed to be able to make things that were not permanent, we could go deeper, focus them on a single expansion, have them be the hallmark of that expansion, but they weren't going to add to
Interesting,
the
so it was a
ongoing
tactical
complexity.
decision then.
That was,
Oh.
and so I think that was going into Warlords. And I think, as you mentioned, there were definitely some
I can understand the mentality of it, but I think a simple counter argument just would have been made that just don't make it mandatory to play anymore, but still keep it in there. Like that should have just been it. That way, that old content's still there to be used if you want to use it. It's still kind of relevant at whatever time frame, but just don't make it mandatory.
missteps with the garrisons.
Yeah.
But
Like it'd be cool if you can still use your artifacts for like whatever item level weapon. Like if you like sacrifice a weapon into an artifact, you get to still use that artifact. Obviously, like maybe tune down like the extra things from it. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just too much work to make it work continually. But I think it would have been worth it.
Yeah.
I think, moving ahead into Legion, it was like, well, okay, obviously we don't want something that pulls you out of the world. The class hall in some loose ways with the mission table with some of its trappings and custom.
Oh, that was great. I actually think the integration of the class order hall and like the artifact weapons into the old world in Azeroth was perfect. I thought it was amazing. Everything they did about that was good.
Organization was a little bit of a successor to the garrison system. You wanted it to be a social space for you to see all the other people of your class. And of course, that's where we also brought in, a power component to it, artifact power, and all those systems. And it's important to bear in mind that, we're planning a couple of expansions in advance.
Like
the
the
development
Jailer.
cycle of an expansion is quite lengthy, from initial conception to pre-production concepting, beginning to flesh things out. So we had, we knew what the feature set for Shadowlands was going to be well before Battle for Azeroth came out.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that was the ongoing outgrowth of like what seemed like a very successful experiment at Legion. Legion was very well received overall, very popular overall. People had nothing but praise for its systems, and so part of what the team as a whole.
I don't know what he's gonna say, but there were some complaints. I think it's just the overall feel of the expansion was better than the previous one, is the main vibe. So
was thinking was like, okay, this is a great formula for a modern expansion. That
I see the thought process now.
what is our artifacts of the next expansion? What is, what are the things that are going to fill these holes that we're going to leave? Now,
So it's Legion's fault that BFA and Shadowlands had this shit in it?
there were a few things that we
I don't think it
were
was
still
anything
warranted.
wrong with it. I think they took the main system and just went too far with it. Like, they didn't think of like long-term consequences.
I think first off was
Because I still think the Legion artifact stuff was actually pretty cool. It just, the fact that I had no cap was usually the big issue.
the initial excitement of like, oh my god, I no matter how much WoW I want to play, I can always keep progressing my character. This is awesome. I can log in on Saturdays and feel like I accomplished something, as opposed to the raid logging people were accustomed to in Warlords. That was energizing initially, but gave way to fatigue by the end of Legion, as we started to hear, complaints about AP.
By the end of Legion, bro, by the end of the first tier. Halfway through the first tier, whenever it became bad was whenever you had that one break point. So there was it was whenever Trial of Valor came out, and I think it was 35 artifact traits. If you had 35 artifact traits, you got a 5% flat damage bonus. And the problem with that, for 54, everything above that was 0.5%. So like the total amount was, 35 for Guarm, 54 for Crosus. That's fucking right. I had 54 before Crosus even came out, okay? Like it was some degenerate shit that I was engaged in. I got all of my traits so fucking early on. Anyway, what? Yes, go back, watch the videos. I would log on. Guys, morning. It's 3 p.m. Who's ready for Maw of Souls? I would stream in Legion just so I could get viewer keys. Hey, it worked really well. It worked extremely well. Let me see even, can I think I'm still logged out. Let me show you how bad it was, because I'll just do this for a second. Because I do think that like in Legion, a lot of the entry systems were massively bad. Like whether it's Titan Forging, whether it was the legendaries, whether it was artifact power. Like artifact power was really cool until you had to hit that breakpoint. And I think that it was also bad because like everybody always felt like, oh, well, you could have gotten even farther if you waited next week. So it's like your efforts are just like continuously being invalidated. So I go to statistics, you go.
Yeah, Legion had a lot of catch-up mechanics, and I think it's not the catch-up mechanics that was the issue. It was the fact that the grind was so crazy. that without the catch up mechanics, going in late, it's just not possible. Like you're never going to catch up without those mechanics in place, which is the core of the issue. Um, was that you just never, there was no stopping it. You just had to go more and more and more and more. Um, so I think that would probably be, at least in my opinion, like the biggest issue.
Go to dungeons and raids. Let's go to Legion. 212 Maw of Souls runs, 188 Advisor Melandris kills. Arcway, I also like doing Arcway because it gave you bonus points. 71. I did all of that in like a month.
Grinding and the sense of like, okay, I can always be progressing my character. That means
Yeah, I
I
didn't
always
really
should
do
be
any of
progressing
that.
my character.
Oh,
I don't have
you're
time
talking
for
about
alts,
the
and
Because when a game gets to that point, I just stop playing.
never-ending amount you can acquire
yes,
versus one thing that took away in BFA was that anything you did gave you AP.
yes, that continues. So I think, but I think again, a lot of the decisions about what BFA was going to look like were already almost completely locked in for all intents and purposes before we started to learn the lessons from Legion. And even
I feel like that's a problem with the design flow. Like, isn't that bad that you?
That you can't even make changes, like even small changes. Like that's not a big change. We're not asking you to remove the damn system and remake it. Just have a cap on it.
You have systems that are in the game that are planned 5 years in advance, and then they're unable to be changed based off of feedback as the 5 years progresses. Like I think that, yeah, I mean, like you can say this is modular design, you can call it whatever you want, but if this ends up being a handicap, then that's a problem.
you know, even Shadowlands was
Like there's nothing wrong with it, like in terms of learning core systems and adding them. Like anything that succeeded, go ahead and start implementing it. But it's different if like you know what the issue is. Like in Legion Artifact Powers, the fact that it just kept grinding, and it was like to such a crazy degree that they had to have catch-up mechanics to make those adjustments to the current system.
getting to
That's still in progress.
respond to, well, what didn't work in BFA, what was missing from BFA, things like what could the successor to the class halls be, what if there are covenant halls, what if these are, places that have more depth and interest to them than anything we offered in BFA.
All those things would have been cool.
But it wasn't,
Yep.
again, it wasn't really until we were halfway through that cycle that we started to really have concerns about, the shift that had begun all the way back in Warlords, about the modular approach that would take things away. Because
Yeah.
people were not sad to say goodbye to their garrisons at the end of
It's a shame,
Warlords.
because
right?
if they've been iterated,
If they had done with Garrisons kind of what they're doing with Orgrimmar, like how Orgrimmar has that portal system now, like we can go pretty much anywhere from it. Like if Garrisons had something similar, it would still kind of be relevant to this day, and especially if you can add like Dragonflight Portal to it, and just add on to it, like maybe the crafting now, like with crafting how it is, like really would have helped out with the garrison. So I don't know. I think they could bring that back super easily. Just kind of change up a few things about it.
on, they were potentially something amazing.
Perhaps, but the feedback, right? So we didn't.
I wasn't happy about getting rid of my artifact weapon. Remember that fucking Juggernaut talent where like you could execute and then it would make your execute do more damage? That was a good time. Yeah, I didn't like that at all.
We didn't really appreciate the extent of that pain. When BFA came out, we certainly did.
Yep.
Losing your artifacts sucked.
True.
Leaving
Totally agree.
having all your legendaries disabled the second you hit level 115.
Absolutely.
Not a good day getting into that alpha.
And I think, but again, at that
Totally
point, we
fucking
were
true.
already heavily committed on
Yeah, that's definitely true for anyone. You give them a toy, you take away the toy, but I think it would have been less if they got it like, okay, which abilities did you get from your artifact power that people really liked? And let's see if we can add that to the next expansion's talent tree kind of thing. I would assume that would be like the next like obvious step forward.
the course we were on, because we at some point,
Wrath Gladiator.
we have to keep
tablet.
marching forward. We have to keep making stuff.
Yeah,
We
of
can't
course.
throw out a year of work. But we started to have misgivings about that general direction, and I think realizing that the cycle we're falling into is one where every expansion begins by losing something that was awesome, leaving a hole that we then, like, at best are scrambling to fill, and leave you maybe equal to where you were before. But if we screw up at all,
Yeah, it's like you had $100, and they take it away from you, and they give you 5 20s, and then they take that away from you, and then they're like, okay, so here's like fucking 5 10s. There's like let's say 20 5s and like 3 1s. There you go. Okay, put it together. Let's see how much you still got. Or it's like still like either way you're getting. I mean, I know it doesn't add up to 100. I did the math wrong, but like you get the idea.
Yeah, exactly.
lesser, that is not a path to success.
Yeah, it sucks.
So that was the genesis. For
And it
what
did feel good in Mists of Pandaria. Like, I remember whenever I could first solo, like, Hakar, or whenever I could first solo Ragnaros, and like, getting more and more powerful every expansion. And in Legion, whenever you had, like, fucking 3 million damage, you could do, like, 3 million damage and shit like that, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I would like to think of as sort of the beginning of a third era of WoW philosophy, which begins with Dragonflight, which is trying to return to the idea of focused, evergreen things, improving baseline systems, introducing new systems into the game that we plan to carry forward, not introducing systems.
So they're basically saying that, like, the problem that they ran into in Mists of Pandaria, yeah, they're going to run into that problem again, but that's in like 8 years. Who gives a fuck? Yeah, all right, cool. I'm in favor of this, yeah.
That we plan to, throw away at the end of a year and a half or whatever.
They gave up, good.
But doing so, I think, in a more sort of thoughtful way that, as you were saying much earlier, gives us some opportunities to make use of prior content and, feels like it's going to be sustainable in the years to come.
I think we're really at our best when we're looking to solve problems, right? Like when you look at Mythic Plus that was introduced in Legion.
Yeah.
Really, the problem that we were trying, that started from a problem. We identified a problem of like, we build these dungeons that are so beautiful, they're so epic, they're really exciting experiences, and then you stop running them after like, the first month of the game.
The new idea is really
Pretty much as soon as the raid comes out.
Mythic Plus is great. Like, I think Mythic Plus is great. Now, I hate Mythic Plus, but I think it's great. There's a lot of things I hate, but I think they should exist.
Yeah.
comes back in.
Yeah, and that's another one where we're looking to really take
It's great for a lot of
cues from
people.
other games.
I don't really like doing Mythic Plus
build off of
either,
that
but
foundation of, like,
that's because I'm
other ideas
mostly a
are
solo
okay, cool,
player.
These were still fantastic dungeons.
And you're not the only ones. Like
Exactly.
nearly every MMO we've looked at that's gone the decade plus mark is now looking back at the not only thousands of man hours but millions of dollars that have probably been spent, and they're just like, why did we just abandon that
Right.
exactly?
We're just gonna leave that there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
True.
One of the revelations while I've been here is this idea that you had modular design things, and they had no intention of carrying them forward, and that just feels crazy. To know that it was fully intentional. Like, I get what they're saying is like, because you start the next expansion, thinking about it, planning it a couple of years
Like, you can see how they got to that logic, but at the same time, it's
quite
just
fit into,
kind of dumb.
like Warfronts.
Right.
Probably don't fit into Shadowlands particularly well, so we're just going to make it and leave it behind. But as a general whole idea, do you think that's just going to go away? Like, we will look to, why are we investing time in this and not carrying it forward?
So I think there will absolutely be systems that are added to WoW that are evergreen and will continue to, move forward with us, and will.
I think the main issue with that is that when you run with stuff like that, where it's not going to go to the next expansion, it's very easy to be half-assed about it and not care if it's been optimized, which I think is where we saw the Covenant system run into.
Continue.
This is kind of what I was saying. Is that, like, imagine if for the last 5 or 10 years, instead of adding one of these systems, we had something like the Mage Tower. And think about what the experience would be for a player coming into the game now. Would the game be better or worse? I think it would
Better.
Undeniably be better.
Yeah.
To evolve those, but that doesn't mean that they can't change, right?
You
And
can't think of what it's going to be in 15 years.
Right.
You have to say, like, let's put it out. What do people like, not like, and sort of grow it from there and
totally.
Yeah.
try and make it work. That's what I think we hope for. Because when I found out, it's like, no, it's never intended to go that way. You made like Sneaky Pete and this whole AI thing for islands.
Well, I think the reason for that is also because they can be way more creative. They can be super fucking creative and go and do ape shit things if they know that it's not going to have an effect on the overall game. And
But they weren't that creative with them. The only one that I thought was super creative was the heroic visions and the corruption system that they had. But the other ones weren't that creative from what I saw. I could be wrong though.
I think some of that stuff is okay. You can have some ape shit design.
That's why Season of Mastery was like such a letdown. It's like for something that you know isn't going to last, it's just seasonal. Like why not, flip the table?
And like know that, okay, this isn't going to last. We're just going to have fun for now.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anything wrong with the expansions having like a system or two like that. For example, Artifact Power. I thought was really interesting, really cool when playing it. But I think most people understood, okay, this is probably not going to last beyond this expansion because it just doesn't make sense that it would. Obviously maybe some hope that it would, but it wasn't going to be a big deal, at least not to me. Because you kind of go in it knowing it's probably not going to last.
Yeah, but it's not going to go anywhere. So when we see that coming in, I think people will be really appreciative of that idea.
Right. And it's always fun, like you mentioned Sneaky Pete and the islands and kind of the AI that got built there. There's always, exciting opportunities when we build things like that to try to look at that as something that we could leverage for a future feature, right? Like, I've always loved the idea of like, gosh, it wouldn't it be cool
but you don't.
to add like an arena
From what
that
I
was
see.
just played against like, AI essentially, but what if we made them really good and like
that could be pretty fun,
again?
right? Like, can we like recreate some of the like BlizzCon shit?
Yeah, so it's like PTSD from fucking Trial of the Crusader. Yeah, that's awesome. That's super cool. Great idea, man. Yeah, let's totally fucking have that.
Champions, like how
That
they're
would
playing,
be really fun.
and like, hey, play against the BlizzCon champions. Like, what?
We did use some of the technology, right, with things like the comp stomp, Rathibian comp stomp. So
Comp stomp is great. I actually think comp stomp is really good design. It's super fucking easy. Even if you are absolute garbage, you'll still win. And it happens every once in a while. Everybody shows up for it, and it's totally fine.
certainly are not arena champions that you play against. It's like basically the honor part of a situation, but we try to find small ways like that.
Yeah.
This modular design concept is really...
That's good that she knows what people really use it for, though.
Yeah.
She's like acknowledges it. She's like, yeah, so it's just honor farming. Yeah, good.
Really important.
Well, it's always good to know that they have like some understanding of how the players are going to use it.
About features that came into the game and then disappeared. Features you probably consider to be failures. Torghast, island expeditions, warfronts, etc., etc.
I don't think any of these systems were failures necessarily. I just think that the implementation was bad.
I was just about to say that too. How they were implemented was the failure, not the systems themselves. Because the features were actually really cool. I didn't get to play Warfronts, or a little bit of Isle Expedition, but really almost nothing of Warfronts. But everything I heard about them, like, they could have gotten all those, like the ones in front, like these three examples, and really built up something special with each and every one of them.
And I think actually these systems, if they were slightly changed, would have been really, really good.
Yeah. Or at least built up upon to make something like incredible.
The way
They were
it
all
works
great
is
ideas.
Dragonflight is about to come
Like
out.
some serious
Dragonflight
evergreen
has actually been in
content.
production for 2 years. As me and you are talking right now, and no, I did not get to see anything.
Because they don't really have much of it. They have the battle pit system. And that's about it. Like, in battle pits, let's be fair, it's kind of lame. Like, I'm not a fan of it. It's okay, I should say. Like, I did it, kind of got bored of it. But, yeah, they really need more.
I intentionally closed my eyes. The next expansion is already in the works.
So you can see by the color there, it's going to be a Void Lord expansion. Preach has given us a hint there. Yeah, it's going to be a Void Lord expansion. That's crazy, guys.
It'd be interesting if, because during the end quest with in Dragonflight, like, when you get into that zone where like you're in the old world, like I think that's maybe where it's gonna go, which would be really really cool, interesting. Um, but at the same time, it's like they really really need to work on stuff. Like I know even Final Fantasy falls under that to a degree. Like they had the squadron system that went to the trust system, but I way prefer the squadron system. I think they went backwards on that. But at least it's something. Like they didn't completely abandon the idea, which is what WoW seems to be doing. Like even with things that like, like the core idea everyone liked. For example, when he said everyone in beta loved Torghast, it's like, well then that tells you there's a nugget. And even though later obviously people hated it, but you know why people hated it, so why abandon it?
Holy shit, I'm excited, yeah.
Now they have to base what's coming out next on what they've done before and what you guys might like. The best example here is Artifact Power and Azerite Power.
There's nothing wrong with that because it's true. Like the system itself is pretty, like kind of fine. It's more like they need to make small like adjustments to it, which isn't, I don't think, too difficult. They do it mid expansion anyways.
Ian mentioned that during
I dislike the idea that because of a production pipeline, it's okay to have obvious problems like this that can.
Yeah, because a lot of times the problems will eventually rear their ugly heads, and like, okay, well, what is the problem? A lot of the artifact power was one, you needed to do a ton of things to kind of really get it up, and to the point that you had to have catch-up mechanics. That was the problem with that, and that there was no cap, and it became like crazy towards the end of it. So it's like, okay, so you know what the problem is. Make sure that doesn't happen in the expansion. Like, yes, you finish that expansion, but guess what? That problem is like now there, so you can go back and just make that small adjustment. You're not rebuilding the whole thing.
Continue. I think that this is a problem in design. Like, it's like you can't say, like, well, because of our production pipeline, we're not able to make changes on things for, like, 3 years. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely fucking ridiculous. If your production line and your
That by that logic, how is it that they're able to fix bugs that players capitalize on, like, same day? Like, if they can't make changes, how is that a thing? It's obviously a thing. So obviously they can go in there and make these kind of changes if need be. They just don't want to.
your design schedule and your pipeline for making content.
I can understand it, like adding mechanics, removing, like replacing mechanics, that kind of stuff. Okay, makes a little sense. You need quite a bit of time investment there, or time to do those. But for things like covenant switching, that should not have taken a year. That a month at most. And to be fair, it should have taken a day.
Can't be altered because of some made up system, then you're just making the game worse.
During Legion, they took a risk with Artifact Power, a never-ending grind.
They did.
And it was met very, very well by the players. At the same time, Legion's...
I think that the player reception for Artifact Power was like this. It was high, and then it got worse, and then it got better. This was Emerald Nightmare. This is probably TOV, OV. This was Nighthold, and this was TOS, and this was Antorus. This is kind of what happened.
coming out and people are responding to this, Battle for Azeroth is already in production. This system is going to continue in terms of Azerite power. That means that the guys are already building their island expeditions.
Nah, bro, like, I don't believe that. That's bullshit, because, like, remember whenever Preach said that you could get all of the traits from your Heart of Azeroth at the beginning of fucking Battle of the Tsar lore, and then after Blizzard realized that everybody would already start with the second trait, they scaled back the amount of traits that you needed to make it higher, so you had to spend more time grinding Azerite power.
Yep.
I will not accept the idea that they had to retroactively...
They're just lying. They just don't want to, like, it's bad PR, to tell the truth, and that The main philosophy around the company was wasting players' time in game, as long as they're in the game playing. It doesn't matter if we're wasting their time. They know that we're wasting their time, as long as they're paying for that subscription, playing the game like that. It was the main mentality. So it's not like everything they've said just doesn't like add up with the actual facts of what was going on.
Change this supposed 3-year pipeline to make people farm a little bit more Azerite power because of some 3-year plan. Because if that was the case, they would have gone with the original one. Yeah, no, bro. Like, no shot.
Daily quests out where things will pop out to collect Azerite power. They're already building Azerite armor. This is all the stuff they're building as the natural succession to...
Somebody says that's micro, not macro. Bro, it is a micro thing. So if... No, it's not micro or macro. That's like saying deleting 1 0 from a boss's health is micro because you're only deleting 1 0 from a boss's health. It was a massive fucking change.
Artifact weapons and artifact power. It's not until the end of Legion that people start getting annoyed with artifact power. It's an endless farm. I've been doing it now for 2 years. I'm getting frustrated by it. Oh no, our next expansion has exactly the same system in place with more twists and turns involved in it. And there's nothing they can do about it. We've already built it. It's ready to go. We can't just scrap it and start again because it takes 2 years to make more things.
And that's what I was saying. Like, no one's asking you to scrap it. It was a similar with, like, no one's asking them to scrap it because it's similar to Legion power. Like, they had to add catch-up mechanics, but they didn't scrap the damn thing. They just added the catch-up mechanics. So, yeah, they're just feeding you crap. They could have changed it, or at least made some adjustments that would have made it much less, or much more palatable, whatever the word is. I can't speak today. Whatever, you know what I mean. More likable, whatever word you want to use, to people. But they didn't, because I don't know. They feel like I don't know. I feel like the mentality there was always like, we know better than the players. So even though they hate it now, they're going to love our new system. So.
This modular design concept also plays into this.
And I also, like, for another example, this modular design concept, why did that make it to, why was there not a cap on the amount of gold that would take to respec Azerite armor? Like, you're really going to try to use a modular design example for this? This is ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, what the fuck? Absolutely not. Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, it's a gold sink and it was obvious. It was too much. They didn't want you to respec that often. It was by design. Yeah.
Let's look at mop farms. Mop farms were super cool, but they make no sense when going into the next expansion, Warlords of Draenor. What they do, though, is use that technology. So we see mop farms as a cool thing that disappeared. The trick is, it was never meant to continue.
Well, they did use it. They had it with the mine and then also with the herbalism garden. This is a good point, and this was good.
What it did do is turn into garrisons. Now, garrisons contained a bit of farming and a bit more customization. Garrisons disappear. We as players see those features as failures. We look at garrisons and we say failure. Torghast, failure. We look at island expeditions, failure. And we consider them failure because they don't exist going forward. The fact of the matter is, they were never going to carry forward. Now, this leads to various problems on iteration. How much resources, if players don't like it, can you throw?
So by that logic, the fact that Torghast was such a big hit at first, similar to Legion power, it only became worse as it came on. Why don't we see it in Dragonflight? Are we going to see it in the next expansion? Because it, I guess it's like 2 expansions ahead.
Go into a system that you know is going to be gone in several months. The answer is not a lot, because you're going to be rid of it soon anyway.
Well, then where are they putting it then? If they're not putting it there, but that is where they're hyping everything, where is it going to? Like, is it all going to freaking raids? Like, is that... Like, I see what he's saying, but at the same time, where is it going? Like it doesn't make that part of it doesn't make sense because they always tout these things as like the big thing about the expansion, but if they're not putting anything in it, then that's kind of an issue. Oh.
Anyway, that's what's going to happen, and its replacement is already being built, if not already built. So you know that you're going to get an upgraded version. This is why they utilize the technology at the back end to make the next thing better, or they hope it's going to be better. So Mott Farms becomes Garrisons. They then use that Garrison technology to create class halls. They then use the class hall technology to make Covenant sanctuaries, using that same tech.
Yeah.
And therefore, they don't consider it a failure. But in the player's eyes, we do consider it a failure. And this is what's going to change.
Well, I think this is fine, right? Like using the technology of like I think a lot of the like phasing and grouping technology in WoW, like the actual like tech design, like is it easy to use, etc. I think the answer to all those questions is yes.
100%.
I think almost all of those design things are good.
Constantly.
That and everyone kind of already knows that they get the technology they've used and kind of build upon it. Like it's kind of obvious. So it's not that players don't know about it and that players consider those things as failures. They consider failures because they didn't like build upon it into the next expansion. And yes, they say, oh, that's like meant to be it, but a lot of times it just, I don't know. I feel like the failure is that they didn't fix it. They just kind of left it to die.
Slotting in these Lego bricks
like they
of
were.
these various features and systems that we don't understand, like Soulbinds, Netherlight Crucible, all those things that we just were like, what is this? And then it just disappears. Essences would be another example. Now we're going to look at things long term. Talent trees, we can keep that going. The new profession system, we can keep that going. And whatever else Dragonflight has in mind, there will still be some things which are expansion specific.
This is one of the good things that PoE did, you know, is that they have, and it can be a problem, and it's become a problem, and they've had to scale this back multiple times, is that every time a new league comes out, this is something that's going to be added into the game. And many things that are received well go what they call core, which means that it now is part of the game going forward in all leagues in the future until otherwise stated. So I think that Blizzard using something like this, a system like this, is good for WoW.
Because it does make sense that the new Island Expedition doesn't make sense in a Shadowlands environment, but it should be way less so.
It could.
Much more caregiving.
They can make it
other
work.
MMOs are doing, to allowing them to go forward. And
If they can allow a character like Jailer to be the main villain, they could make anything work.
Be iterated on and
In the
stay
lore.
with the familiar for the players.
Yes.
This feels like it's perfectly in line with the actual gameplay core loop that you're changing. Are you worried? Because I feel like the game has been out so long now. Someone like me could go look at Dragonflight and be like, heaven. I can come away for a week like I am now here with you guys. I'm not screwed.
Yeah.
I'm not screwed over. I'm not screwing my raid team or anything like that. And this is fine. But we've now got a huge amount of players who have never known World of Warcraft without logging in and having a list created for them of things that they should do. And how do you think that's going to be met with the player base once they get into an environment it's like, choose where you want to go?
And I think the hope is, well, I mean, there's still you can
There's going to be people that don't like it, like THD, for example. THD loved the artifact power grind. He loved being able to like infinitely farm and get more and more powerful. That's totally okay, right? Because it's like, yeah, flex, right? It's another one. Like, there are going to be people that liked it the other way. I don't think this is a good way to design the game overall, but yes, of course, you're always going to have people that like the other way too.
your world map, and there's plenty of activities. There's world quests.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I think with the artifact power, like when I said a cap, like honestly, they could just been a cap on how strong it gets versus like bigger, like just. Actually, there should just be a cap. I'm sorry, but like if you like that endless grind, there's plenty of like Asian MMOs that you can play. BDO, for example. I don't know. I don't think the majority of Warcraft's player base is the type of player who likes that kind of stuff. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think I'm not. I think just based on the feedback they got from the end of Legion. So
Two
Other
people.
events, there's things to do to raise your different renowns that you're
In
chasing.
total, there must be dozens.
Early on, again, for the people who aren't like don't have their sights set on doing high mythic plus or jumping in and getting into mythic rating as soon as they can, a lot of the item level rewards from all of those systems will be very relevant. And going and helping either Rathian or Sibelian out the Obsidian Citadel or
choose?
otherwise depends.
Who did you choose?
Depends on how I feel on any given day.
He can't say because he said that who he thought his favorite character was the favorite. Was the future leader of the Black Dragon flight. Now we all know it's going to be Rathian, right? I mean, like it's obvious, but
nope, that did not age well.
I think there's actually a chance that it could not be Rathian, and
Oh.
Rathian goes, he goes and he does his own thing. He becomes like a wanderer or an adventurer or something like that.
Nope, you're wrong.
Commit.
No. There's
Pick a side.
we'll see what
Good.
the canon choice ends
That
up
would
being.
make
But,
more sense. I think they should have done that,
but in any case,
honestly.
all of those things are offering powerful rewards. It's not like we've just said there's no more reward in the game. But for the people who, the people who are focused on the hardcore stuff, who are getting, 410 plus gear from other sources, they have plenty. They have plenty to do, and we don't need to try to, offer them more reasons to spend more time in World of Warcraft.
That's actually real. I'm really glad that he said that because like a lot of end game players, like this is one of the reasons why I burned out of raiding. It's like there's like all this other shit that you had to do at the same time. Like back in the day, you just show up for the raid, do the raid, you're done. All right, where's the loot? There's the loot. There we go.
I mean,
I'm
even
done.
back in the day, it wasn't
But like then there's
exactly like
artifact
what he's
power,
saying, but
fucking
yeah,
Azurite power, all this other
gotten
extra
way
stuff. And, like,
crazier
just
since.
acknowledging like, bro, if people are farming mythic raid gear, they're not gonna quit. They're gonna make another character.
or otherwise spending.
Yep.
And I think, all this is just there with a sense of freedom to explore.
But I think you can say that
As
with a
you
lot
said,
of things
for
in
some
WoW.
people, maybe you're going to get focused on getting raid ready during the first couple of weeks, and you'll come back and check out the renown tracks later because there are mounts or dragon riding skins or other things you want to unlock.
Yeah.
Or again, if you're someone who's really focused on professions, there are specific recipes. If you're a leather worker, you're going to want to, work on that centaur renown to get some of the leatherworking recipes from there. So it's all of this.
That's why I want to get into the reputations, specifically for that. Yeah.
Artifact power, that, soulbind renown.
Well, yeah, that was the whole problem. The problem wasn't that the systems existed; it's that they were mandatory. Nobody had a problem with like war things whenever they weren't mandatory. People might say, yeah, they suck, they're boring, I don't do them. But like it wasn't a problem with the game. Like it only becomes a problem whenever you make it a problem by making people feel like they have to do it in order to progress or to be competitive.
And that's what I was talking about when he was talking about like you should only be able to get like the absolute top tier gear from mythic rating and stuff. It's like, why are you making anything like that mandatory to get that gear? Like I don't know.
That thing that is just.
And this is like, I'm not complaining because I'm like not someone who like won't do those raids if I want to. I've done them before. It's not that difficult, especially with the amount of add-ons about lets you use. It's stupid easy. I mean, I was raiding Final Fantasy 14, which doesn't have the add-ons, so it's like I can do it. It's not for me that I'm arguing the points for. It's mainly the type of gameplay I prefer is solo gameplay. So like if I don't have to do those mythic raids and stuff like that, mythic dungeons, great. That's good for me because I don't have to do things I don't like to do to begin with. You know what I mean? But I think that's really what it is. Like just giving the options to do something else. Like, yeah, it may take me a while longer, but I prefer to do that than this kind of thing. So
Hitting everyone over the head with being completely.
Man, this video is so
regardless
long.
of your play style. And again,
I'm really
it goes
hungry.
back to, we don't want to force
What do I want to eat?
players into content that they don't inherently enjoy.
See, that mentality, this is why I'm getting back into Warcraft. I really, really wish they stick with that mentality. Is that things shouldn't be mandatory. Most things. Like, give options. Like, yes, you should have to choose something, but at least give multiple options. And the more options, the better. That's why I wish they brought Torghast back and just had that as another avenue. Warfront's another avenue. other than the simpler ones. That's why Mythic was such a cool thing. Like I personally don't do it, so I don't really like it, but I love that it's in the game. I really, really, really wish they would do more stuff like that.
Want to let you play the game the way you want to play the game.
Are you far more
Yep.
relaxed now with it's okay if people aren't logging in week on week? If they log in just for, because you mentioned earlier, raid logging would be the prime example, but obviously in terms of logging in to do the specific thing it wants to do, it's felt like for a good long time now, we want people online, we want WoW to be a part of their daily habits almost.
Yeah,
Not just daily, just as much as possible. If we can waste their time to get them to get on more often, then yeah.
it's like you have like mobile game. It's like, okay, you have to log on. All right, check your login rewards. Okay, check your daily track rewards. All right, check your battle pass. Check your premium battle pass. All right, good. Do you have enough energy for today to do your different tasks? Okay, you've got to go do your tasks.
Lost
and
Ark.
then,
I hate Lost
you
Ark,
have the
man.
bonus weekly event that's going
Which
on.
sucked because I really, really enjoyed myself with Lost Ark that first like month, but man, that got super old quick with that energy crap, and the fact that I had like almost nothing was solo.
And now it's going to expire in 4 days. Okay, let's go ahead, make sure that you do that task for the bonus weekly event. Okay, good. And then there's also a boss you have to kill once a week. You only kill them, you haven't killed them all this week, so you have to go kill him too. It's like, all right, finally, I'm done. I can play the game now. And then you log off. And then you log on next day, you do all of it again. Yeah, it's like mobile games retention mechanics.
Yeah.
Like by intention, you know, your mission, even your mission board from BFA, collecting your Azerite power, whatever it might be.
I'll give an example. Like, I actually think the mission table for Shadowlands, totally fine. I have no problem with the mission table from
I thought it was okay. Yeah.
It's totally okay, not a big deal. Because it's not mandatory.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you just do them because you want to.
Systems seem designed
Sometimes they give you cool stuff, but I never felt like if I don't do this, I'm falling behind.
More relaxed now with that.
Dailies are good. Having to do dailies is bad.
Probably isn't going to be. It won't be for me. Is what I would say.
Yeah.
It's not going to be. There's other options out there that are equally as fun, and maybe less fun, but also I can jump into that experience very quickly. You've got games like Path of Exile out there that are just free.
Sure.
Not going through a great time right now, but generally speaking, the market is so flooded with this.
Really
is this something
curious to
you're
see what the next
adapting
league's gonna
to,
be.
accepting, or?
I mean, all the above to an extent. I mean, I think we never want, you know, our goal is never habit in the sense of like you have to log in when you don't want to. Our goal is for you to want to log in. Our goal is for you to want to play World of Warcraft and to look forward to getting back into the game.
I think they went so far into that goal that they ended up on the other side where you have to log in.
To have something you want to complete, something you want to chase. And if you're not wanting it, then
Making the incentive so crazy.
getting you to do it despite that isn't a victory for us. It's just burning people out.
Yeah,
And so I think giving people the freedom to feel like they can take a step away, do something in real life, play another
100.
game for a while without falling behind is valuable. I think the one thing that we do worry about when it comes to, you know, sort of the raid logging phenomenon or people taking breaks is the social nature of the game. Is, you know, sort of the critical mass of keeping a group together. If the person who is really excited to log in to do things with their guildmates logs in and no one from their guild is online because of whatever reason.
Yeah, that's always sad whenever nobody's logged on in your guild, and it's like you look at the guild and it's like last online 6 months ago, 8 years ago. It's like, oh fuck, I'm not in a guild, I'm in a graveyard. Yeah, of course that's depressing. But I think also giving people more ways to have communities in the game and find people that are like-minded, I think that's what's really important with that, is that you give people other opportunities to make friends. You give people other opportunities to interact with each other.
When they want to, as long as it's not mandatory.
I think cross-faction was a really good example of that.
100%.
And then they just
That should have happened a long time ago.
Disappointed because they were hoping to play with friends, but their friends weren't around. That can be an issue. And I think that's something, you know, going back to WoD, to Warlords of Draenor, that was probably the peak of the raid logging era, where really there was like, other than checking your garrison, if it wasn't raid night, there was nothing to do. It wasn't, because Myth Plus didn't even exist back then.
As well.
Yeah, and it would also provide resources for you, so you didn't need to farm consumables back then because the garrison just paid for everything.
You know, go in, look at all 10 of your characters, or 10 at a time.
And so that felt
I think WoW does have to have better social structures and better social systems. Like you look at Final Fantasy, it's like, as I said, I went over to Moonguard, fucking Goldshire Inn, and I asked them, why aren't you guys ERPing on Final Fantasy? None of them had a good answer for me. They're like, well, I mean...
They like WoW.
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. It's a different game, I guess. I played this game a lot. Like, yeah. So the truth is, I think a lot of people, they absolutely love being able to log on and have friends and see people in the game.
Yep.
I remember, like, during the raids, like, nobody would talk because it was the raid. And after the raid, everybody in Vent would, like, get into their own different Vent channels, and we would all do, like, Isle of Quel'Danas dailies together, or do, like, BGs together or something like that.
Yep.
And I think that's the type of gameplay that
Good
like, you
times.
need to have. But in order to do that, you have to have content that's fun to do outside of the raids, and also like more social experiences that you can have in the game. Because I feel like WoW doesn't really have a lot of very compelling social experiences.
A step too, like,
Not
too far
anymore.
towards that end of the
I think it kind of does.
But ultimately, you know, as long as we're keeping
Hard to
social
say.
groups
I don't know.
somewhat healthy, we want people to be able to play the game in the way that makes them happiest.
Excellent. Like, this is all very
simple as that,
positive,
right?
Yeah, it's like
it seems like it should be. It's kind of a no-brainer, but
well,
Yeah.
no, I mean
Yeah.
that's the experience I've had, and I've been on some mystical quest now, like Kung Fu, is like
Listen,
trying all these different experiences. Like the main thing I'm seeing is they just create experiences that you want to log in
Yeah.
for, you don't have to log in for, which is what I remember from World of Warcraft.
there's a player base of millions of folks who've said, we like this game, we've chosen to make this our home, we ignore them at our folly. Like, what do they want, what do they not want?
I think that's enough about gameplay. Dragonflight is changing so much. This mandatory content that we've been burdened with for the last 8 years is going away. There'll still be some stuff, and that's basically them wanting you to be excited about it. Come and check it out, see what it's like, but then you can leave it alone. It's more of an introduction than anything else, and I think that's a fair balance that they've struck.
Yeah, that's
But now
good.
we need to move on to a more sensitive subject. The elephant in the room. Sexual allegations against Blizzard has been a prominent subject around the world. It's still ongoing, with lawsuits still pending.
Yep.
But let's find out what they've done to change things internally.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Frat boy culture. That is how Activision Blizzard is now being described here in this new lawsuit filed by the California Department of Fair
That was
Employment
crazy.
and Housing. The state agency alleges that female employees they are subjected to sex discrimination, unlawful sexual harassment, retaliation, and unequal pay.
Let's get into a few ground rules of this subject because it's a little sensitive, and investigations are still ongoing and probably will be ongoing for a while, which means
Oh, yeah.
we can't
This
dive
shit
into
takes
specifics.
forever.
We're simply not allowed. I'm also not a journalist. I am not the person who should be diving into this stuff. There are lawyers and things working on this currently to find out exactly what happened and make sure the right people are compensated. We know certain things have happened at Blizzard. We are fully aware that they have done a complete equity paycheck on every single employee in the business.
That's
making
good.
sure that person A doing the same job as person B are being paid exactly the same amount for doing that job. We know that's taken place, and people are very happy with it.
Okay.
What we're going to do is give Blizzard the platform. We're going to ask the question of what their goal is overall. What is their philosophy overall to make sure things like this never happen again? Amongst all the Dragonflight changes that have come from the last 7 years of expansion, it's been so changed. But you've also had so much, and we've got to get into this, it's like so much upheaval internally with COVID. We obviously had all the harassment stuff that came through and massive changes amongst the staff. Like, how have you dealt with that in terms of dealing with the motivation of the staff, the internal environment, and then pushing forward with an entirely new philosophy on the game for Dragonflight? It's got to have been a rough couple of years.
It's definitely been a challenging couple of years, but I think the team today is stronger and more tight knit than we've ever been, having come through that and having
I think that makes sense.
weathered it. I mean, COVID
Yeah,
in 2020
it's like doing a
obviously
hard raid.
threw the whole world for a loop, to say the least, and began a process for us of relearning a lot of sort of lifelong creative and collaborative processes of how do you have what used to be the casual conversation around a whiteboard, or bouncing ideas off your office mate.
We talked about it yesterday. It's like it's very, very strange, and in the creative environment.
Oh, that's the girl that helped
really
me get
hard.
the
And you've
interview
done
with
Shadowlands
Ian.
and Dragonflight in this new
Winksy.
place, so it's got to have been for you. Is leading the charge. It's like, okay, this is a lot of challenges to face.
I think it's been resolving some problems and figuring out systems and processes that work. And a lot of, I think a lot of what we've come up with, we would keep regardless. Even if we could all come back to the office tomorrow, there are certain meetings that we would have that we'd keep virtual forever. I think it's the social connections, it's the casual interactions that are the hardest to reproduce, but we continue to work at it. And then obviously the other, major event last year, I think really it triggered a period of ongoing self-reflection for the team as a whole, for the company as a whole. Starting last summer, it was both, looking inward to our culture, to our history, to, frankly ask, like, are we who the internet says we are? Is this who we really are? And I think the answer we come to is no. But also certainly it's who we never want to be and want to have no chance of being. And so how do we change our processes? How do we develop a culture of feedback?
How did you get there?
Openness and trust that makes sure that even the slightest hint of impropriety will be raised and dealt with before we ever got any place close to the allegations from years and years.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's not really that complex, right? You just treat people right, don't fuck with them, and pay them fair. I mean, we don't need a fucking, like a 10 Commandments about this. Like, it's just like, treat people like people, and you're going to be 95% of the way there.
I think it's more complex than that. But, I mean, it's true, but that's only if, like, you're the only boss. But in a company like Blizzard, there's, like, literally, like, freaking probably over 100.
About the state of the game. Your I'm quitting video very much included. Of like, we're missing something big here, right? Our goal at the end of the day is to make a world that players want to spend time in, that they're going to love spending time.
I feel like this year for Blizzard was absolutely a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, absolutely. Like, I mean,
they had to.
Into shitter. StarCraft, what the hell is that? Warcraft 3 Reforged got refunded. Fucking World of Warcraft sucks dick. Like, Overwatch 2 is a meme. Like, I mean...
Yeah, if they didn't do, like, some serious changes, Warcraft probably wouldn't be a company in the next 5 years. Maybe 10.
This is not working.
Like, if they release Shadowland level after Shadowland level of quality.
Yeah, that's Blizzard. Yeah, there you go.
And we're failing.
This is the third day we've been here on the Blizzard campus, and it's a strange, strange place. It's huge. 7 giant buildings housing Overwatch over there. They're doing World of Warcraft in there. They're doing WoW Classic over there. It's a weird, weird environment to be in because there's nobody here.
Oh, that's cool. Damn, that's like Malfurion. Is that little bitch Anduin? Jaina? I guess that might be...
That is pretty cool.
Oh,
it's interesting.
That's gotta fucking be Bolvar. Maybe Uther, I don't know. Thrall? Sylvanas?
Garrosh,
of course. Is this Ner'zhul, maybe? And that's Gul'dan? And that's a bear. That's cool.
Been running
That's a bear.
15% staff
Rexar?
on site since Shadowlands. Since
oh,
COVID
yeah,
kicked
Rexar
in.
and
it doesn't plan on changing.
Misha,
People
right?
that are here generally come in for 1 or 2 days a week. The rest of the time they work from home. And all across California since Shadowlands, since COVID kicked in. Blizzard has been running about 15% staff on site since Shadowlands.
So nobody even shows up to work anymore? Okay.
They use Apple.
And it doesn't plan on changing.
All right.
People that are here generally come in for 1 or 2 days a week. The rest of the time they work from home. And all across California, to the other gaming companies we've spoken to this week, that is going to stay exactly like that.
The last 4 years have been really tumultuous.
So yeah, they just fucking sit at home all day and that's it.
For you guys. We've had COVID and walking around yesterday, wonderful access.
Well, Dragonflight's been pretty cool, so obviously it's working.
You know, very strange, an eerie feeling.
Well, maybe they did Dragonflight in the building.
It's an anomaly, and I know that. I've been told that many times by the comms team. They're like, it's not like
they have a library.
We've not set this up. These aren't paid actors to give it some life. But we did the full tour yesterday. Everything you guys set up for all the stuff is so fun. Like,
are those board games?
Their places, seeing the team, the staff just.
That'd be really cool if those were board games. Maybe it's both.
Exactly why we're here. No one sees that, right?
Yeah.
That's what they don't know happens. Yeah. But obviously, then the allegations come out. Huge shake up at the top. Like, and you guys are the ones who steered that ship, as far as I know. So, like, we need to know, how did you do that? You came into a really rough patch, and then you seemingly have got here. So,
Well, I mean, as you pointed out, I mean, who could have predicted the last couple of years? I mean, just having COVID and having to work from home, and we
Yeah.
literally mobilized like within a couple of days. It's like, okay, everyone, there's a lockdown happening. You need to go home to be safe. And
Yeah, Alex
you know,
Jones.
we'll make
brother,
sure you have
true.
equipment. And, you know, then we literally went through a cycle of getting everyone machines. That alone was a big deal, you know, to deal with. And certainly, you know, the issues that we faced as a company and even as our team, you know, our team felt very strongly about, hey, you know, we're going to send our message out to our players. We want them to know where we stand and what, you know, what we want to be, you know, as a team. And, you know, I'm really proud of how much the team, nobody on the team got defensive. Nobody said, oh, but this, that, or the other, and said, no, you know, okay, this is a wake up call for us. This is something that we have to ingrain in our culture and reinforce. And we've grown as a team, and as new players come onto our team, we want to make sure that they are safe, that they understand what our values are, and that, you know, we want our game to be inclusive and diverse. Because after all, our
As long as they don't go
audiences,
too far,
it's
most people
around
are
the
cool with
globe.
that.
I'm going to throw one thing at you because I also oversee the Warcraft franchise.
Yes.
In our 28-year history, we've accumulated 250 million players.
That's a lot of people. Holy shit.
Yeah,
God
bigger than
damn.
most countries.
So that's an actual no. That God damn. Holy shit. That's a lot of people.
In Warcraft.
In just Warcraft.
Around 250 million players.
It's crazy when you see the number, right?
It's nuts.
It just seems unrealistic.
You think of how, you know, big that is, and you know, it's important that the team that is making the game and the content that's in that game reflects that diverse audience, and that's something that this team has embraced wholeheartedly, and it's been great. It's been great to see, and letting our game and our team speak for us, you know, and what we stand for. I've never been through that kind of experience before,
That's
you
a
know,
new
especially
expansion. It's called
making
development
games,
team.
which I think a lot of people think of
Little
as
dog.
kind of trivial
What the heck?
experience before, you know, especially making games.
He's just sitting there.
There's a Dragonfly quest.
So that's why we have
With
so
a
many
frickin'-
fucking corgi things.
I think
in
there's
the
a
game.
corgi.
There's some fucking guy at Blizzard
It was
owns
pretty
a
funny.
corgi, really likes corgis, and now there's like 8 different items in the game about corgis.
Which I think a lot of people think of
Okay.
as kind of trivial entertainment, or at least they did when I first got started
It used
with
to
it.
be. It used to be,
And
for
now
sure.
it's you know, it's an important part of people's lives.
No, I totally get that, and I can't say I've never seen a happier workforce
Good boy.
besides mine, obviously. No, everybody's been super happy.
Feel
even,
free to, you know, speak candidly if you
It's a pretty chill environment. You bring your dog to
but
work.
it generally has felt that way being here because that's exactly why I asked to do this. I watched the latest couple of interviews. The Dragonflight announcement I really disliked because it was very glossy and shiny. I was like, this isn't gamers. It's not us. Who are you talking to? You know? And it's then you get here and it's like, this is the reality. You know, chilling out, shouting, playing volleyball, and doing all those kind of things. And I think you should be proud of what you've done because unless
Thank
you're
you.
all like it's a North Korea thing going on out there, everyone seems pretty happy.
The stories that came out over that time were absolutely horrific, and they're still ongoing, which is why
Oh,
the guys
yeah.
couldn't say much. No woman working anywhere should
Yeah.
feel that
Well,
way.
they're not going to be able to say shit about it because of the company policy. Like, I mean, I know this very fucking well. It is like if you have something like this that's ongoing, you can't say a fucking thing about it.
Nope, not until it's all done.
This is an industry-wide problem that we're seeing all over the place, and hopefully is being
Yeah.
addressed. Blizzard themselves are doing what they can, making sure that the lines of communication are open, and the message has been absolutely loud and clear. We spoke to people off camera, on camera about this, and that message was simple. This can never, ever happen again. They can't afford to
That's
have it
good.
happen again, and they don't want to be associated with that kind of environment. And
Well,
they-
it
That's great
makes,
to
it
hear.
makes everything worse, right? Because like you've got people like what you have to remember is that like a lot of the sexual assault stuff and like the harassment, etc. Like all that was part of it, but that wasn't the whole thing. There were also people that like felt unsafe in the workplace for other reasons, things that were not sexually related. You know, like intimidation, people being
Yep.
forced to work long hours, etc. It's like you go
Or
to work
it's
and you're
crazy
constantly, like, looking over
favoritism,
your fucking shoulder and
um,
worried that somebody's gonna like
management like would kind of decide whether you lived like in a great
Like it's just gonna be that's
company
gonna
or
be all you
not,
think about whenever
which
you're at work.
that should be a company-wide thing,
You're
not a
thinking
management
about doing your job. You're thinking about this
situation.
bullshit.
Trying to move forward as a team, and as Ian said, they don't want to be the people the internet says they are. They don't want that at all. And it's nice to see
Who
that
would?
during the stages,
Internet had a
stuff
lot of
did,
bad
that
things to
John
say.
Knight was out there supporting them as well. The new leadership is a big part of why we went. Fresh blood in. We've had Holly come in, Mike Ibarra come in, and we have Microsoft potentially coming in the future, who are all addressing this issue to make lives better for themselves. And we hope for
Yeah.
that to be there. In total, Activision Blizzard has laid off 37 staff, reprimanded
Jeez.
a further 40 plus. I can't predict the future, and it's not my place to do so. I can't talk to every
Lot of bad apples.
The fact is, as was pointed
That's
out
a
to us
lot of
several
people.
times, is the fact that people can now work from home has given them a safety net to be able to speak out as quickly as possible if something is going wrong. What the
Probably
future
also
holds
cuts
is
back really
bonkers.
on the
And so we'll pay attention to
sexual
these ongoing
harassment stuff.
lawsuits, what's going on and what they're doing with. But I can tell
can't
you
really
this,
get physical
and
if
I'm
they're
okay
like
with
in a
saying
whole
this.
different house.
What I saw while I was there was extremely happy people. Obviously, not everybody's there, but that's what I saw. The only times that Blizzard asked us to turn our cameras around was when the staff were squealing with delight at seeing other employees. They've been apart for so long, and they love working there, and they love the other people they work with.
Yeah,
We've heard
sure.
from other sources that you will see in other interviews coming out later that the rumors and reports are that things
Makes
are
sense.
much,
A
much
lot of people
better
working at like
Blizzard
just
itself.
working at
Especially-
Blizzard is a
Of course
dream
it-
for a
that
lot of
makes
them.
sense, right? It's like
Was a
have
dream.
y'all- and the thing is, like, people might say, like, oh, they didn't really get rid of that many people, etc. Have y'all ever had like a party where like one person shows up at the party and it ruins the party?
Yeah.
Like,
One bad apple can ruin the whole basket.
I feel like it's very easy for one person to ruin a lot of other people's fun.
100%.
Absolutely, man.
Especially if
Only
it's
takes one,
someone
and especially
that no one
if
can do
that
anything
person at
about.
The party is your fucking boss. And if you're
Yep.
at a party, it's your job. Yeah, I could easily see how they can make everything worse very easily, and removing a handful of people would improve the quality quite a bit.
in the Warcraft team, and they're all working to make things good for them. That's what we know, but it's up to them to prove it.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to discuss
Exactly.
is why did we go?
The future's going to tell the
Why
story.
did we do this? Why did I pay to send me and another
Really
member of
hoping they
staff
turn
and all
things
this
around.
equipment over across the
Dragonflight's
side
looking
of the
good so far, and
world
I'm
to see Blizzard.
super
When I
looking
left,
forward
I was
to
about as
the
deeply upset
future.
about a video game as I'd ever been. World of Warcraft provided me so much, and I had to say goodbye. But I felt we owed them another chance. And what was really interesting is at the top
Owed
execs
them
at
another
Blizzard,
chance?
not just in regards to me, but in regards.
Let me read one. Come on, Asmon LFAO. It's easy for one person to ruin a party, but this is work. Come on now. I love Preach. Love his content. That's complete and utter bullshit. Really?
That's someone who's never worked in a team, ever. Like, that's someone probably in school or something, where the only person who could make that kind of effect would be like the teacher. And even then, like, you've never had an asshole teacher, and it's like during class, obviously you're not going to have as much fun, and then once you're out of class, like, boom, it's almost as if you were like in a whole different reality. And then you have the cool teacher where it's like that reality is just shared across the board. So that to me is like a person who either has like zero social experiences or just is too young to really know what they're talking about.
What about the CEO of Artesian?
Oh, a great example.
People saying that Elon Musk
Damn.
was ruining Twitter. What about all that? Like,
The recent
there
smash
are a lot of cases where
controversy.
one person or a handful of people can massively influence an entire company culture
Yep.
or make it a lot worse. Yeah, the method stuff.
The higher the position, the more influence.
Regards to you guys as well, who may have left, felt the same way.
WoW, when it first came out, I mean, Facebook was only at Harvard. It hadn't yet hit the rest of the world. And for a lot of people, social interaction through the chat of WoW and logging in on WoW was one of their first experiences in being
novel
around a bunch of other
experience.
people and exchanging ideas. Even though the premise is we're playing this game together, but we're also having meaningful discourse. And I think that, you know, we want
Yeah.
to see that
Especially
they're-
for many people
they're
outside
doing
of
the
your
same
area.
thing, you know, 5 and 10
Like
years
out of
from
the
now,
country,
looking back
also.
Exactly, but that requires innovation and evolving. You can't just do the same thing that you were doing in 2004 because the same thing is different now. Somebody is saying that, like, by the way, I did not mean to say that Elon is ruining Twitter. I do not think Elon is ruining Twitter. I think that people are massively overblowing it. I don't think he's like massively saving it yet either. We'll have to see what happens. I'm just giving this as an example. Yeah, I do not think he's ruining Twitter. I'm just giving an example. This is, you don't have to prove or disprove anything to me. Please stop.
then.
Especially because seemingly when I stopped making regular content, I mean, you guys, you know, not directly, but World of Warcraft gave me a career. I've traveled the world with my children because of World of Warcraft, and to leave that behind was devastating. Like, to the point where I could not play this game anymore. That's where I was at. I can't even fathom logging into play anymore. Nope. We met in 15 years ago when you were in Molten Core.
Wow.
He was just a raider in Molten Core, in my Molten Core guild. And we disconnected for a decade. And then, because I was streaming and stuff, he was like, "Oh, Mike."
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, and now he works for me, and we're all doing very well. So I
That's
owe all
cool.
that to. So it's like leaving it behind was devastating. And then I see Dragonflight's coming out, and I kind of got the message. We kind of changed everything that you were moaning about. Have a look.
That is pretty badass.
I was like, okay. And then I came in. I was skeptical. I was
Yeah.
a pessimist. I was like, it's here somewhere. There's Azerite power under this table. I know there is. It's working. And it's like, no, it's not there.
That's
So
what I was saying too. Whenever that came out, I'm like, all right, let's see what this is really gonna be.
That's when
Yeah, where
I
is
watched the last interview with Ian and Max. I was like, this ain't right. Let's send a message. Can we come? Can we do something that's casual, relaxed, a conversation? Instead of like, here's 20 questions. Go. Right, I'm going. Yes. So thank you.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah, just having the conversation. Like, I know what's weird is that this is starting to become more and more common, is that in industries, especially like New World, like realizes how communication with their community, shocker, is actually healthy for the game. Let them know why decisions are being made. Obviously, they still haven't covered why freaking changing a covenant wasn't really implemented right away. They kind of like pussyfooted around on why that was a thing, which is freaking, I don't know. I think it was the mentality that they had that was holding them back, not the design flow, because they've done it where they make changes to things that were like kind of obviously bad, but other times they didn't. So it's like, okay, those times you didn't, why was it? Oh, that's why, because it would waste people's time, which would get them to play more in your heads. So, of course, you didn't account for the people who like said, "Fuck it, I'm just not going to play anymore."
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad you returned.
Yeah, thanks for not giving up on us.
Yeah.
Man, what a long video.
I agree with you guys.
The sun is setting on our time here at Blizzard for now, and this video.
It's a gold shirt.
Everything we were promised, we were given. Unprecedented access. We got to go absolutely everywhere. We were well taken care of. We got to look at everything, and it's hard not to be impressed with the changes in leadership and the direction.
That would have been really awesome experience,
I can't
Aaron.
promise what's going to be here in the next 5 years. What I can tell you is, as I'm talking to you right now, a meeting has been going on since 5 a.m. discussing where World of Warcraft will be in the next 10 years.
5 a.m.?
They're duly focused on new things. It's Era 3 is what they're calling it. It's going to be a big change from everything we've seen.
Era
since
1 was good, Era
Fusion,
2 not so
since
much.
Classic.
So
They're going in a
hopefully Era
different
3
way,
learns from
and
Era
they're
1.
going to see how people like it, and they're going to adapt.
The two's
Everything
mistakes.
they've told us is that they're listening to player fluid feedback. The game is going to
What
be
does the
dictated
fluid
far
come in?
more by what players want to do. The idea of modular content will remain, but now they're looking to make content that is far more evergreen. Features added.
That's what they should have done from the beginning.
Should still have relevance 3 expansions down the road.
Good.
Not just left to the bin like Warfronts and Expeditions.
They should bring those back.
That we're gonna have dragon riding in the whole game. Well, then let's just fucking do it now.
Exactly. 100%. And that's what I talked about too. Is like, there's no reason. Because your normal flying mount can get you like to places that the dragon riding may not. Because it can get you, it doesn't have like a vigor system. So that doesn't make sense. But yeah, no, like I really wish they would go back and kind of retouch upon some systems that were mechanically well thought out, but just implemented poorly. Torghast, Warfronts, corruption system, just stuff like that. I don't know. Like, I think the game would just be elevated to a whole new level. I think it's because this recent changes, it's really got me hyped for Warcraft's future. So I'm just like, can't help but think like, what could they do to make it even better?
Let's just do it now. I don't want to wait till the end of the expansion. Let's just have it right now. Come on.
Yeah.
Garrisons. The list goes on. Class hall.
That should have been the case. Once you finish the main story, just boom, you now have it unlocked for the mainland as well.
Which have all been fan favorites. Some of them.
Like, I guess I can understand you wouldn't want it for some places, but honestly, I don't care. Well, just put it everywhere.
Less so, but then just disappeared every single time, which was by design in the past. That's going to change. They're going to look at it in a different way. It's worth a look and it's worth checking out because their intentions seem very, very pure. I'm super happy with what we found here.
Well, more
That's
than
good.
pure, it's in their best interest. Like, what are you like?
If it kept down the road,
expansion that
yeah,
sucks. People keep quitting.
I couldn't have asked.
They would
for
slowly
more. I
bleed
couldn't have
out.
had more time, and I'm glad we came, and I'm glad we did this. Thank you for coming along for this journey. and
Boosted
we'll
Panda
see you again
Baby.
soon.
Holy shit, what a video. Oh my god, what a fucking video. I cannot believe I went through that whole thing. That didn't even feel like an hour.
It really didn't. And in my case, it was 2 hours. That felt like 30 minutes. I mean, I'm freaking starving, but man. This is why I wanted to watch this, because I knew it was going to have some crazy stuff in there.
This is a good fucking video, guys. Y'all need to give it a like. Preach really went he really went out of his way with this one. Holy fucking
Above
shit.
and beyond,
Wow.
man.
Wow.
Serious
wow.
respect.
Well, literally.
And I know a lot of people are jealous of like the opportunity for Preach, but it's like, come on. Like, Preach is one of the few ones that I think would have been acceptable. I think Asmongold also would have been acceptable. Taliesin, like, there's a couple, like, definitely a handful, like, of creators that I don't know if deserves the right word, but I think are an acceptable person to go to do that kind of thing.
Make sure to give it a like, give him a sub. Holy shit, man, this is a good video. Oh my god.
Great video.
It's a 2-hour react? I don't even know.
Yeah.
That was just only part 1 as well. Oh, thank God. That's more content for later.
Oh,
That's pure
shoot.
content.
There's
Yeah,
more?
This is
Oh
fucking
my
great,
God.
man. He's good at interviews. Yeah, he is. Oh my God. I just want to play the amazing raids. The only thing good about the game, less like an intermythic with less than 1 hour daily investment without fucking handicap, it won't happen. Yeah.
If you're into raids, I don't know why you don't play other MMOs as well. Not just WoW, is what I mean.
Seems like they're not going to have that anymore, which is a good thing. And it was good to see like all the different people that like, you know, Ian, Holly, and John Height. Like, I mean, you see these guys all the time whenever, well, guys and girls. You see them all the time whenever, you know, there's an announcement or whatever, and just having them talk about it casually. Now, I think that was really good. It humanizes the people that actually make the game, and it makes the game more of an actual, you know, an endeavor that real people make rather.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think for most people, when they think of WoW developers, they're like this faceless mass of people that they hate. Because one, they're like sexual harassers, or they create these systems that just piss people off. They don't seem to listen to anything. So I think more stuff like this would really help people to kind of understand what's going on in the back end. Still no excuse for not having covenant changes.
And some sort of like capitalistic venture, so it's definitely a good thing. Yeah, please go ahead and give the video a like. This is amazing. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Preach's channel. It seems as though we're going to be getting a little bit more Dragonflight content out of Mike Preach WoW, or now Preach Gaming. Do you think Blizzard should have paid for the travel? No, I actually.
I don't think it would have mattered.
I think that would have been bad if Blizzard paid for the travel, because it would add in a it's like quid pro quo, you know.
I was just gonna say it would make feel like Preach would have to say something kind of nice.
Oh, like, we're gonna pay for you to do this, and then there's like an expectation, a bias, right? Yeah, so you should not pay for it. No.
Makes sense.
So yeah, it was good for them not to do that. Yeah, what did you guys think of the video? Like, we got a lot to talk about here, honestly, with this. This is just like fucking, there's a lot to go through.
There really is. I don't know. I haven't seen other videos on Asmon talking about this stuff. I'll see if I can find any. Obviously after this, though, I'm gonna get something to eat. But like, I think after playing Dragonflight and then watching this, like, it really does kind of like really hit. Like, okay, maybe WoW is gonna be my new MMO. Like, I've been jumping from MMO to MMO since Legion, and like I came back for Shadowlands obviously because I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. They're going to like this like underworld kind of thing where there's like heaven where you get judged. I thought it was a like a cool like premise or whatever you want to call it. But like after playing it, I'm just like, oh my god, this is awful. Like awful on almost every front, lore wise. It was just one of the worst for lore. If you liked WoW's characters, like mechanic wise, just freaking grindy as hell. It's like, I don't know, just everything felt bad about Shadowlands. To the point that I'm just like, man, if the next expansion's even half this bad, like I'm just gonna have to choose something else. Maybe I'll just be done and over with, pick Final Fantasy. Because I've been playing Final Fantasy quite a bit, but I don't know, never even didn't want to give up fully on WoW just yet, so we'll see.
Good.
Gucci.
Went by so quickly. Good. True and real. True opinion on modular design. Well, it's the same as appears to be Blizzard's opinion. This is no longer something that they can do. It seems like they're moving away from that to an extent. And also, I think that if you have a
Changing it
design
up.
system that makes decisions 3 years into the future with a constantly changing audience that has different preferences, that is not able to adjust based off of that, I think that you get into a situation where you are too big to fail, or sorry, too big to succeed. You can't change course. Being dynamic is something that like every single company nowadays has to do. We saw it with COVID. We saw it with supply chain problems. We saw it obviously with a bunch of other shit too, like now with the economy being bad. Being dynamic is what separates a company from being, profitable for a year versus profitable for 50 years. It's being dynamic. You have to be dynamic. Music is loud. I'll turn it down a bit. Skeptic here. It feels like Blizzard marketing, trying not to look planted. It's a good video regardless. Well, whenever people
Didn't
say
look
that it
planted.
feels like it's marketing or whatever, what does that really mean to you? Yeah, what does that mean to you? Does that mean that they're talking about the game in a positive way? That they're not being negative about it? Like, what do you want to see? Of course it's marketing. Yeah, I mean, of course they want to talk to people that have a platform to make themselves look better, to promote their new product.
Yeah, I think anyone with a brain would know that that would be the better idea from a business point.
I mean, yeah, of course. Those interviews talk about transmog and lifting customization. Yeah, I think that they need to have more of that kind of stuff fixed. It's telling me everything they should be saying. It's not bad at all. It just feels like it's business driven. Well, like, what do you think they were going to say, though? Like, I mean, that's the thing. It's like whenever somebody makes a criticism of something that seems like it's corporate or...
I mean, it is a business. I don't know what you would expect out of that. Like, this isn't like a few dudes in their basement.
Or, like, business focused. Like, they... Yeah, number one...
But dudes, I mean, it could be girls, too. But, like, a group of friends in their basement.
One, they are a business. Of course they're going to talk like a business, especially with like the fucking sexual harassment stuff. Of course they're going to fucking do that. I mean, this is for legal reasons. And other than that, I mean, I feel like these were pretty candid.
It definitely felt that way. I mean, this was a really good video. I'm going to kind of stop it after this video ends. But yeah, no, it was a great overall video. I think
They didn't say anything about daily grinds. Yeah, they did. They explicitly said that. They talked
yeah, that
about
person
in, like,
wasn't.
3 different points.
Yeah, whoever said that last part really did not watch anything really. It's crazy that they said that just now. Anyways, so final thoughts on it. Like, I'm really, really happy with everything that was said here, and I think going forward we can expect some actual quality content from coming out of Blizzard. So I think it's a good time for anyone who plays Warcraft or played Warcraft. Maybe content creators, I have no idea, but I just definitely know from a player's perspective, like, this is the kind of stuff I was really hoping to see. And that was a bad picture to get them on. That's funny. What about this one? That's better. So it's hopefully everything they said is what they actually think. And the modular design is actually seen from an evergreen perspective from now on. And I don't know, just going to be hopeful in general for now until they kind of do something that makes me not. In which case, you know, hey, there's other MMOs. So it's not like you're totally screwed. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.